Okay, welcome everybody to council work session dated August 16th, open for visitor comments. Please state your name.
Agnes Peterson, St. Helens, Oregon is my business address. And I have 3 things to say to you. And you don't have to respond to any of them. I just want you to hear them. Number 1, I want to compliment you on Mr. Heartless. He's a very fine employee, and I think you should rename him. It should be Heartmore instead of Heartless. I find him very professional and very accommodating, and the kind of representative that puts a good face on the city of St. Helens. And I mean that sincerely, and you haven't seen me here very often saying things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The second thing I want to reiterate is my support to continue the municipal court. And I hope that you are working toward that and keeping them for the citizens that you heard from the last time I was here. The third thing I would like to do is, it's my understanding that Bings is going to make a short presentation during visitors' comments. And as a citizen of this community and a friend of Bing's, which I have been for many, many years, not as their lawyer, not representing them, I hope you will consider what they have to say to you. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Agnes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Paul Joe, and I'm from Bing's Restaurant. And I understand there's a dispute between the city and Bing's, and I brought some documents to share with you. I think you have a copy of one of these documents already. There's a copy here for all the city council and for the recorder, if I could just have them hand it.
Okay.
One of each. So why I'm here today is, what I want to say is, I would like to have I'd like to have a meeting between the city council and Bing's and the city attorney and Bing's attorney to try to see if we can resolve this dispute reasonably. And that's why I'm here today, because in this stack of documents, one is a copy of a letter from the attorney that states the situation. One of those documents is from the city on how they calculated the rates, which it's not clear to me how they calculate it. The other document is from Nolte Water that states how they calculate their rates. And the last document is the water usage for the last 10 years at Bing's. And it goes back 5 years before the city calculated the rates. So I want you guys to take a look at that and see if we could have some kind of a meeting between the city and Bing's and the city attorney and Bing's attorney, see if we could just resolve this matter reasonably. It's why I'm here today.
Matt, what do you have to share on that?
As far as the dispute that the city is in with the restaurant in Paul Joe, our attorney for the city has responded to the letters that we've received from his attorneys, and stated at that time we were not ready to agree with Paul Joe that there was a leak caused by the city. We have still not been given any proof on our side that the leak that Bing's property had was caused by the city when they installed the sewer line back in 2011, I think it was. 2010? 2008. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not ready to make anything, but we haven't seen anything from his attorney saying they want to set up a meeting to talk. It was a letter, the last letter we received was, we would like to settle for this amount, and we were not ready to do that on the city's behalf.
Okay. I'm not opposed to setting up a meeting.
The thing is,
I know this has been going on a long time.
yes, the thing is, we believe that the rates that are not calculated correct. We believe that it's wrong, because obviously there is a leak. We have repaired it on June 22nd, and the water stopped flowing through the ground. And I believe there's also a new water meter, and I believe if we take a reading, it will indicate that the water usage is much less, and that's why the rate is not correct if it's used based on usage, because if there was a leak before and now you calculate the rate with the leak and it's been repaired, the rate should be adjusted. And it was my understanding the rate would not be adjusted until next year sometime.
Well, in the interest of fair play and a good relationship, prior to our meeting, I think we need to look at the outcomes, the goals of that meeting. Just to have a meeting, I'm not quite certain what's going to happen in that meeting. But if we narrow it down to specific
I
goals
would
and
like to look at
outcomes,
the water usage and to say that it's less, and I'd like to have the rates looked at to be adjusted since the leak's been repaired, and that's what I'm trying to get out of, mainly get out of this meeting.
Is that not between you and McNulty, the rates?
No, the sewer usage, I believe,
Oh,
is
the sewer
three
usage,
times.
yes.
The sewer usage is 3 times the rate of the water. The water usage is about 20. With the leak, it was about 2,200 every 3 months, but the sewer rate is 2,200 per month.
Is that sewer and storm?
I
Oh.
don't know.
Because it makes a difference.
That is
'cause
just
all the-
sewer.
That's just sewer.
But it's
If-
3 times the water rate.
To give you a brief history on how we came to those rates, I did a survey when I first got here of some of the outside customers who receive water from McNulty PUD and receive sewer from the city. What I had found was that those rates had not been updated or changed since 2011. So I went back, especially on Bing's property, because of his high usage, to figure out what the average was every year. And his new rate was based on the average usage of water for the previous year.
But he was not charged for
For all the previous years?
until
No.
you started
No,
that.
we just started that in September. I think it was passed in a resolution in October, November, to be effective in January or December, I believe.
Okay.
And in that resolution and during the discussion, it was agreed that I would review all of those outside customers once a year and update their usage as from McNulty PUD ratings and update those rates depending on what the usage is. So his new rate would be in January of next year, but it would be based on the calendar year of 2017. So that's the
Was it just an oversight, Matt? Was there?
correct. To go a little bit deeper, the rate that Bing specifically was that they had was raised based on a calculation that John Ellis did. And what he did was take the average water usage for 3 local restaurants, the Klondike, Dockside, and Cozy Inn, to figure out what a restaurant average would be in the city of St. Helens. He took that average and applied it to Bing's to get their sewer rate. He also used the inside rates and not the outside rates for Bing's. So his sewer rate was about $350 or so back in 2011. It only increased through the moderate increases or the percentage increases that you increased water and sewer over the years. So over the last 5 or 6 years, it's bumped up to about 396 is what it was. And then when I did the rate calculation of based on his actual usage and not the restaurant average of the 3 restaurants here, that's why the large usage kind of bumped up, and so his sewer bill jumped up.
Sure. Well, and because he went strictly off your water, and I don't see you guys doing a lot of outside water in there. I'm familiar with your property. So
We
100,
do some outside
a
water.
little bit.
We have
You
the trees all the way around
Yeah, yeah.
the.
So, but majority of it is going to be sewer. That your water consumption through the bar, through the restaurant, through the kitchen, through the toilets. And that's what he's basing it off of.
I know, but if you look at the chart I gave you from the multi-water, it has the water usage from 2007, and then it overlaps the chart.
We don't have oversight of McNulty Water, do we?
We do not. I have to call, once a year to get those rates for Bing's as well as the other outside
But
customers that
from
we have.
2007 until 2011, the water usage was half of what it is, and that's when I believe the leak occurred, or sometime after that.
Yeah, but he didn't adjust your rates until after that on the sewer. So
Right, but I'm
you're here
going-
talking to us about your water, right?
I'm talking about how he got the rates, because the water usage was half, and if that was true,
How far did you go back, Matt, on the water usage?
I went back, and I'm happy to share this with you because I brought up, this is what the council received. And that shows his usage reports from McNulty back since 2011.
Okay. So it started right as he got the leak fixed.
Well, correct. And I have not contacted McNulty other than I did call them today to get because I had talked to Paul Joe this morning, so I wanted to get some updated rates to see what the usage was. But in my opinion, we had made the decision to adjust all of these outside customers once a year based on their previous year's usage. So I personally am not a huge fan of singling one customer out compared to not doing it for everybody else. His rates that he's paying right now are based on the consumption of what it was the previous year. And that's the
what
same.
it was the previous year.
The previous year on that was
Yeah.
September through October, I believe. It's kind of weird for McNulty because they do quarterly billings, so their billings are every 3 months, as you
Yep.
can see on there.
Yes.
So I took the average of those.
So you took the 13 in November to December.
Yeah, it's basically one
all
of the
way down.
20,000s and then the two
Yep.
17s or so to get a average of about 16, I think it was, maybe 16 or 18,000.
So what he's telling me is that he's only taken the last, year, but it started back in October of last year and went back a year when the water was fixed.
no, the water was just repaired a month ago, last month,
Okay?
June 22nd. And I first saw the water come to the surface last April. And it was last summer, last August, a year ago, that I brought attention to Matt that I had a water leak. But the repair was just done recently.
So, Mr. Mayor, I have a suggestion. This could take a long time. It isn't on the agenda.
Yep.
And so what I would suggest is let's
else
schedule a
like
meeting for at least two council people, whoever that would be. I'm sure the mayor and someone else.
You've been involved with the McNulty negotiations before. Would you like to?
I'm fine. Yeah, I'm fine doing that. But whoever else is available would be, so. And we'll schedule that and get to a good outcome of this and have a sit down so we don't take up, we have a busy agenda today.
I see that.
So we don't take up a lot of other people's time, and we'll put it on the agenda and get down to it, okay?
Do you know-
That's a recommendation from Public Works.
Would it be before the next city council meeting, or when would?
Well, what we'll do is we'll be in contact. I'll have either myself will contact you. I think I have. Is that your cell number you called me on yesterday? And you are vitally important to this community. You do employ a lot of people, so I didn't mind taking a little extra time with you today. And that being said, we will get down to looking at what your water usage is too. I can't promise you that you're going to be forgiven like you were asking, but we'll try to adjust this to where it's right for both parties.
Okay, I appreciate
Okay,
that.
Paul?
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other visitor comments?
Hello, I'm Natasha Parvey, and I'm at 35227 Juniper Lane in St. Helens, Oregon. And I've got Brady Preheim with me today.
33480 Southwest Chinook Plaza, Scappoose, Oregon is my business address.
So we are here on behalf of Keep It Local Columbia County. I was here about 8 months ago or so to kind of give you some updates on what's been going on with the project. And today we're here to give you more updates. I've provided a little bit of documentation and also a request for a consideration of financial investment to the project. We have currently been up and running for about 15 months. We have over 324 businesses listed on our website. 154 businesses are from St. Helens, so the bulk of those businesses are coming from the St. Helens area. And we're getting about 500 users a month, which is fantastic for a new project. It means people are using the website and finding the information that they need to stay local and shop local. The project, like I said, we are a free website for businesses to advertise. It's like think of an old phone book, or if anybody knows Yelp, that's what it's like. They can add their Facebook information, their website, so basically they can be found at all times. And we do have currently the biggest directory in Columbia County. Our opportunity is to do advertising through grassroots and get businesses to connect across the county. We provide networking connections. We're working with the local chambers, with Shedco. We've done educational classes at the library in St. Helens, branding, social media, and government contracting over the last year. We do some set marketing campaigns, one in the winter for Christmas and then one in the spring, along with other social media advertising. But the big one for Christmas is we took 42 businesses across the 5 cities in Columbia County, and were able to track $24,000 using a very simple Spirit card, which was like a coffee card. For every $10 spent, customers got a stamp. So we were able to track some good amount of money last year. And we do a Second Saturday Shop, which is just a very simple promotion. And like I said, other social media campaigns. We are a new nonprofit. We are partnered with CCET. We have funding streams right now. I'm selling advertising. So we have sold about $3,000 worth in advertising. We have a radio show on Kohai from 10 to 11 promoting local businesses, and we get a donation from that as well as advertising dollars. 100% of that goes back to us, thanks to Kohai. But the big thing is we've got a lot of donated time and resources over the last year. So I have submitted some documents from January to June, and some of it's July because I was working on a grant. But we've had over 400 hours of donated volunteer time from Councilwoman Susan Kahn, and Jenny has also donated time on this project, and many others in the community leaders across Columbia County. But the big thing is we've got over $9,000 worth of media and business donations. And so we're coming in here today to do an ask from the city of St. Helens. I'm going to turn over to Brady.
So it was just about 2 years ago when we started this project, and the first thing that we did was we combined with a American manufacturer. What's her name?
It's American Independent Business Alliance.
Yes, who did a survey of local businesses and what was here, what wasn't here, what needed to be here. That was a very nice survey. At that time, the city of St. Helens contributed $1,000 to the Keep It Local program. And we would like to ask that you would contribute $5,000 for this annual cycle to keep up the good work that Keep It Local has already done. We are going to be asking other cities, Scappoose as well, as trying to get a additional grant from the Ford Family Foundation, who has a program sort of set up for economic development that would really match this. But unfortunately, the person at Ford didn't do much, and now she got fired, and hopefully they're going to replace her, and so we are looking, to have this program be sustainable. But it is, it's not exactly the chamber. It's not economic development like the Scappoose has one and Shedco. It is a unique opportunity to sort of combine the whole county into and encourage people to buy local. And I do think it does have a unique quality that nobody else is doing. And I think it's a very worthwhile project to get people to buy local, and it's probably the single best thing that you can do for local business. I know that it's helped my business and bring customers in the door, and so we're hoping to ask for your help.
I have been involved with Keep It Local for a long time, and it's hugely... I really appreciate their efforts because it's not a membership organization. It doesn't have prejudice for the size of business. It can be one person, it could be a company of 500. It doesn't treat anybody any differently. So I think that if we had money, I'd like to entertain a notion about continuing our support. I don't know what level or where that money would come from.
I agree with that. And Keep It Local does support small business, and if you talk to the businesses around, they'll recognize the name because there's actually personal contact with each of them.
Yeah, Natasha's been doing a great job. There was just recently an opportunity for funding with Vernonia and what do you say about that? With the food catering.
Oh, yeah. So one of the big things is that we're trying to make sure that we can track the dollars coming in. Shauna Duggan, who works for the city of St. Helens, was looking to do a camp. She's wanted to do one for a long time. In the process, we happened to be talking, and she said, there's just nowhere to do this camp. And I said, have you heard of Vernonia Springs? And she said, no. So she went up and checked it out. She held a camp there and was able to bring in about $5,000 directly for that business and keep that business in Columbia County instead of going outside. So that's just a little high point of what we're doing with Keep It Local and how we're tracking those dollars.
And she's already taking registration for next year.
Yes, she is.
I mean, that event, I mean, Shauna doesn't toot her own horn, but I went to the camp. She had local sponsors, little mom and pop sponsors that are running their business out of their garage that came and showed their wares and got to promote their business and got to share with 40 women in our community that have disposable income, and that there were businesses I'd never heard of, and I'm on city council. So it was just a huge opportunity financially, but also it was a huge social capital building effort because these women are coming together. It started out as a walking group, and now they're changing our community, and it's just huge.
And one thing to thank the city, last year you put the instructions on how to get on the website on your business license renewal, which was really positive. I did get some phone calls, and some of it was for business. How do we register your business? But I directed them back to the city and helped them the best I can. And also, we've got a pending request to put our logo on your website as well with a hyperlink. So we've been collaborating with the city for a while. You guys help us with some drop-offs and things like that I need help with. So thank you, Crystal, for the press releases too. That's it.
I like what Keep It Local is doing. I understand that it keeps the dollars here, especially when you're buying from the small merchants. I think 8 out of the $10 stay local. Mm-hmm. And if you buy from a Walmart local or one of those type of corporations, it's only 2. And of course, if you're Amazon, it's less than $1 or whatever. That actually comes back to the community. So I like that. I don't know that we have 5,000 in the budget for that.
There's certainly a way to find out.
And
you know, what I'd like to propose at this point, excellent presentation and a great idea, great value to keep encouraging our community to buy local. So what I'd like to do is just ask the staff to put this on the agenda for our next council meeting. We can discuss it and get back to you.
with ideas about where the money would come from.
Yes, exactly. We need to know all of that. And how'd you come up with $5,000? What was it? Just,
Oh, for the Vernon or for the ask?
yeah.
I always go big.
I always go big. Always, because you could just go down from there.
Bigger, isn't it?
So I should have went 20, right? No, thank you so much for your consideration. We appreciate it.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you.
Steve Topaz, St. Helens Street. Going to change the subject. Going to voice some concerns about the renewal funding and mainly the truthfulness of the council. And I'm going to start off, which seems in the wrong direction, but we're talking about putting a marijuana growth facility here in town that was supposed to, has been stated that 1,000 jobs would be created. Now, if you start running some numbers, things start looking funny. We got 8 acres that are supposed to be in this growth. That's about 350,000 square feet. If you say the people are going to drive in, you got 250 cars, you're going to get rid of about 50,000 square feet. Now, the strange thing about marijuana grow facilities, it's a 24-hour cycle. It's not 3 shifts. So we're talking about 1,000 people at one time. And this is dictated by the plants because they need a certain light-dark cycle, and it changes as the growth goes along. They also need a fair amount of air conditioning and environmental control. So you start throwing that, and you get rid of a lot of your area just for equipment. The other thing, the grow area, about 38% of it is where you got to put people. And if you now take a look at your numbers, you've got basically 280,000 feet. Get rid of your stuff for employees. You've got about 1,100 square feet is, 11,000 square feet is used just for walkways within the grow area, or about 100 square feet per person. That's a 10 by 10 foot area. Well, you really can't run that many people in that small an area. So the question is, where did this 1,000, where is the confidence that what we're being told about this area is true? Now, that comes up, that brings now the business of what do I trust you with? The monies for the renewal area are going to have to be borrowed from banks. And we know that banks can't lend money or take money from marijuana grow facilities. Now, since we're renting them, we, the city of St. Helens, are we actually in the marijuana business? Can we borrow money, or will banks lend us money knowing that we're in the marijuana business? The next thing is we get money from federal grants. Will the federal government grant us money knowing that we're in the marijuana business? And remember, federally it's illegal. Now, we'll be accepting money as rent and so on from this company, and typically they have to deal in cash. So if the city of St. Helens accept cash for rent, are we in the money laundering business? Okay, that takes care of one part of it. The next part of it is when this renewal project was first discussed, we had a map showing the areas that were going to be renewed and be part of the renewal area. And they included the mill and the waterfront, and also an industrial area, which is now the Nob Hill Nature Park. Basically, we've gotten rid of 3/4 of the area, because if we fill the cooling pond in, that's going to take 20 years. So this renewal business won't even be in action in 20 years. It will be done. And that means we're basically only talking about the front end or the waterfront. Now, if we're asking banks for money and we're showing them this huge area, but in fact we only have 1/4 of it, is that not actually fraud by the city of St. Helens asking banks to lend us money, where in fact what we've shown them is not really true? The city council has designed this. They've hired the consultants. They plan to manage it. We don't have a commission, and everything has been done by the city council. There's no double checks on that, and that brings up the point. If an outside institution is going to loan us money, I'm sure they're going to investigate us and look at us real closely. And can we reasonably be sure that we pass muster? It'd be nice if all these things were true, but there's some heavyweight business and legal conditions having to do with some of the other things that the city's involved in. These are not separate. So,
Steve, can I interrupt you just
Sure.
for 1 minute? A lot was said there. First of all, it was drawn up by attorneys.
right?
It is 9.5 acres, not 8 acres. First and foremost, it is medical, and the federal government said they are not going to touch the medical aspect of marijuana because it does work for a lot of patients. There was a bunch said, I'm trying to cover it all. A potential to 1,000 employees. It's not going to be that right away.
Yeah,
Every
the
business
statement
grows.
was. I mean, that what I'm getting
that's
at
a
is
potential.
yeah.
That is a potential.
Mhm.
And so I just want to make that very, very clear. And this property is on the backside, and anybody's welcome to go get the copy of the lease agreement that was drawn up and look it over on the backside of Boise.
I'm not worried about the area as much, although, as I say, the statement was 1,000 people, and obviously there's going to be ramp up and so on. So, but I'm just going on what the statement said.
And there will be no smell. There will be no smell, and people should understand that this mayor right here has been clean and sober for over a decade.
Yep.
And I work with a lot of people, and it was a smart business decision, and it was drawn up by attorneys, and they're free to see the lease agreement.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I'm worried about further ramifications where the banks are going to see it that way because they're the ones that are going to be handling money.
And again, Wana Credit Union is now accepting marijuana money.
Okay, that's
So
that's fine. As I say, I'm still. That's a question I'm asking. So we've got to get these answers put out. Whether they've been answered or not, I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
sure.
The business of the cooling pond, we're going to be involved with the federal government up to our ears, and whether they're going to make the differentiation of medical marijuana or not. The government isn't real cool on doing things clearly.
Yep. Steve, I appreciate you showing
So,
up because that answered a lot of people's questions, and I think that needed to be talked about a little bit. So I'm glad that you showed up.
So this is one of the things that, and not trusting the federal government in the way things are going, trying to make sure we cover all of our bets because we don't want to get halfway down this thing and then get cut off at the knees. That's what I'm very worried about, is that we'll get halfway into this and then we're going to be sued by, and these will be outside firms. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Any other visitor comment? Okay. All right, John, let's step on down here. I've got an award to give out. It's a Length of Service Award is hereby granted to John Walsh for his 5 years of continuous public service to the city of St. Helens, Oregon, awarded this day of August 16th.
5 whole years. Does he get a watch? Not yet. He has to stay a little longer.
He got a nice pin, though. He got a very nice pin, and I'm not going to pin that on him. We better get, this is a new reporter from the Chronicle.
Oh.
Been a very quick 5 years.
When you get our age, time starts flying by. And of course, I'm the young one up here.
Had to say that.
Okay, congratulations, John, and thank you for all your hard work for the city of St. Helens. It's well appreciated. Okay, semi-annual report from Senior Center, Cheryl.
Good afternoon. I am Cheryl Young, the manager of the St. Helens Senior Center. I've been here several times. I will preface my report by saying that we have usually had a pretty good working relationship, and there have been pros and cons to the city and the St. Helens Senior Center working together. I will say that, and I don't want to take away from the good that the city has done, although, and I appreciate the last couple of things that they've helped with. However, it was my mistake. I did not either see the message. I probably printed off the agenda or the notice and said that the meeting was canceled. But Mr. Walsh deserves his award just for having met with me recently when I showed up for the last council meeting that was canceled. So he's heard my little speech, and I haven't toned it down too much. But I decided, I also have been around for many, many years, so I know that if there's one thing that comes back to haunt anyone that comes before the city council, it is the fact that you do not talk to just one or two people on the city council or a staff member. You have to get them all here together because the council will legitimately use the excuse that they cannot make a decision without the entire council. So we have you here today. You're all going to get this. And I handed out copies. I really have tried through the years to make a request for something that finally got to us during this hot weather. Therefore, I would like to actually read the letter that I have written to the city council so that it is known to everyone. I will say that there are always things that those of us who do not work closely with city government in their particular issues, that I may be inaccurate on some of these things. But for the most part, I don't think that I am. And I started it out in caps, as you will see, because I want your attention. This is a request on behalf of all staff, volunteers, and clients who enter our facility, thus the St. Helens Senior Center. We have made this request many times, and our patience is wearing thin. It is inhumane to expect any of us to provide a much-needed service to our and your community under the harsh environmental conditions we have been subjected to at various times of the year. Thus, first in our report is a plea to please correct the heating and air conditioning system in the senior center so that it will be conducive to the size of the building and not just be a Band-Aid approach. It has been an ironic joke that the St. Helens Senior Center has been identified as a, quote, cooling center for this area when we too have had to suffer through the very hot days Oregon has been blessed with recently. I wonder how many city officials would have worked the hours we have, cooking, cleaning, and trying to focus on office work with only electric fans to shift the heat around. Our attendance suffered, our utility bills cause us financial difficulty, and our health, both physical and mental, has been compromised. I understand that at least, and I emphasize at least, because we have asked for this proposal many times from TCMS, that at least one proposal was sent to the city for restructuring our HVAC system. But as I understand from TCMS, it was, I will use the word inadvertently, which means through no one's fault, supposedly, misplaced or lost. The city council cannot say they haven't known about this need, because I personally have mentioned it during most every report I have given standing here. The city has fought our attempts to transfer ownership of the land and building, which according to our remaining elder seniors, and this story has gone around since I started working in 2002, that Heine Human originally donated this land and the park and the land and wanted a senior center built there. And that through the years, the city was given the building originally, and there have been 2 community development grants used for it. The last one, as I state in here, most of the money has been raised by the seniors. We have gone after large corporations, the smaller donations. The seniors are mostly responsible for what you see up there and what goes on. That does not take away from the fact that the city has been involved. They were the ones that were in charge of the building project, although, because the city had to be involved. But the project did not go well from the beginning as far as this HVAC system. I've mentioned it before several times, that one of the things that we wanted done in the very beginning when that senior center was revamped was to take away the zonal heating and air conditioning, which did not work. We wanted individual thermostats put in or some way to control the situation better. It's been, 6 years plus that we have been back in this new building, brand new building. We've been lucky that Oregon's temperature stays somewhat around the same areas. But when we have had ice cold weather or very, very hot weather like we just did the last few weeks, we have to suffer. We might as well, I have to admit, going inside is a little bit better than being outside in the heat. A little bit. But it has been very hard to work. Our seniors have stayed away because they can stay cooler at home. It really has been very harsh trying to work. And we know what the problem is. When they kept the same system that they always had. They just made it look nice. And if you walk into the foyer, you can look and you can find these little vents in a great big area of the building that are about this size. And you expect that to kick out enough heating or air conditioning to suffice? One half of our building sometimes works. The other half, where I happen to work, where our cook works, and when you get in a hot kitchen and you're trying to run around for a few hours, fixing 140 meals a day, you're going to get hot. We have an Eskimo cooler in addition to the HVAC system. Might as well just forget it's there. So I didn't even finish this letter, but I want you to know how passionate I am. John knows. And I'm going to remain passionate until the city steps up to the plate and comes in, pays attention. I've asked TCMS many times for a proposal. They apparently have sent them to the city. Whoever's getting them and putting them aside because the city doesn't have the money. And of course, as I made a comment, and I know I've always been politically correct in most of the things I say, so I will say it straight out. If you wait long enough, the seniors will all die out and you won't have to worry about our HVAC system. That's how mad I am. And I'm speaking for them and for myself. And I know, and I apologize to those that are aware and have tried to work with us. But we are doing a service, just like Keep It Local is doing a service for the city. We're making the city look good. We just had to add a 5th route. 5 routes now to take our meals out to people that cannot get out and get them themselves. And so you have to understand that we need better working conditions. And I am going to ask you once again as an entire council, if you've got money for other things, other developments going on, and I won't get into the specifics as I did with John, but I would like to know just how much would it cost, because nobody's ever come back to us and talked to us. Well, TCMS or whoever has said it will cost $30,000 or it'll cost $10,000 or $5,000. And we can't make that decision. That is one of the decisions that the city is responsible for, the main infrastructure of the senior center building, as long as the city owns it. Now, my only other thing would be finally give it to us and then we'll have to fend for ourselves. But that's the only alternative I can see.
Cheryl, what is TCMS?
Good question. It's who you, the city, hire to do the heating and air conditioning systems in all of your city buildings.
I'm gonna have Bob step up. I think he knows.
It's an acronym for Temperature Control Mechanical System.
Thank you. Thank you. And is there any way that we can see any of the proposals that you have said that you have had?
No,
And-
I have never gotten them. They will not send them to us because the city is the one that has the contract. They have told me that they've sent it to the city. I don't know which one of the city has gotten it, if they have, but they did say the last one did come out and that it was admitted that it was lost.
Once
It's
we
a he
find
said,
it,
she said, but
once we find it, let's get 5 copies at least, and another 5 for our staff, and we'll get this thing fixed.
I think
But you
it's
were
up to
talking
the s-
about something that I've never seen, and I don't think.
and you know, that's why I'm here today and so frustrated, because how many years have I been coming in here? You have sat there and listened to me ask for this every time I've come. It's been in the written report. Does anybody read
So
the reports?
I actually just was aware of this about 2 months ago. You guys had I met with your board on a separate issue. You talked about you said it was also because it looks like you have enough tonnage out there because you have 3 units and it sounds like you have another cooler. You said it was a duct issue. Is that correct, Cheryl?
I have no idea what it is anymore, because I think that because the city is the one that has the contract with whoever comes in and does.
We haven't seen a thing on from any contractor at all.
Well, then I think that perhaps you need to look for. I mean, would you put up with this in the library building? Would you put up with it in your city hall here? You have air in here today.
Cheryl, give somebody a call. Have them draw us up a bid.
I've asked them
and
to
bring it
several
down.
times. I think
And
now
bring
it's
it
time
down.
for the city to
Cheryl
step
has-
up
No,
and ask
I'm,
for it.
I'm asking you. I'm asking you as a director to please do that because you're there on a daily basis. To please have somebody come crawl up in your attic, see if it's a duct issue, if we have enough tonnage there on the outside units to make it sufficient to cool your place, and if we don't, the duct work, what's going to require to get it taken care of.
I think the mayor has a good suggestion because you folks know what the problems are. So if you
We've
want
been
that, now
told by
let me
them.
finish, please. If we have our city people go over, or CMTS, or whoever goes over there, if we have them go over there, we don't know exactly what the problems are. You folks know exactly what the problems are, so I think that you should take lead on it.
And just get us a bid. That's all I'm asking.
All right, so if I go and for the umpteenth time ask the company to please send the city a
So
bid,
it's-
a proposal for what it would cost to fix it.
What if you have them send duplicates, one to you and one to us?
Oh, I'm plan on telling them because, I mean, they're due to come out and do regular maintenance. But I'll tell you something, the damage is done. And the time it's going to take me, who has no authority, and you know this, you're telling me and you're asking me to go back and do something that I have no authority to do because I don't have a contract with them. I have asked them to send us the bid. They don't do it.
I will sign a written letter that you can show them that you have the authority to get a bid for the proper ductwork. Kathy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, okay, so
But we've talked about this before. This is not new information Cheryl's giving us.
no, it is not.
It is actually, other than 2 months ago, it is news to me.
Right, but I mean,
Yes.
I want to reiterate to Cheryl, because we didn't hear her the other times, but in the past, we have talked to Neil, we've talked to Ken Public Works, go over and check it out. It sounds like they did something, but it didn't fix the problem. And so now it's just a matter of following through and figuring out where are they sending the paperwork, so then we could actually see it.
You know,
So, I mean, we hear you, Cheryl. It's not the first time you brought it up. I heard you the other times. I understand all the work you're doing there. I'm friends with your cook. I know it's bad.
And we do value.
are we
the senior
exclusive to
center.
this company she's talking about? Does anybody know?
I mean, who handles the finances?
I would like to keep it local.
Who pays the bills?
Likewise.
Who pays the bills? Somebody's got to know about them.
Some of the buildings have maintenance contracts and other ones don't. And
I mean, that's probably why nobody knows what's going on. I'm sorry. But
So
anyway,
I know there's Columbia Heating and HVAC, and there's a couple others.
If it's a repair, it sounds like we can
I
do
will
3
try
bids.
one more time. I have, and so I will try
Matt,
one more
can you
time.
keep
But
an
I
eye out
want
for
the
stuff?
public, I want everybody to know that I have many times asked for this. So now everybody is here together and they've heard me. And if you haven't, I'm sure that I'll hear about myself in the public.
Yes. How is, other than that, how are you doing financially? How's things going? How's the rest of your report?
Well,
Carol?
that gets into another area of something I've always regretted, and that is that the city has other priorities. I know that cities, any government, is having financial problems, but I also believe, just like Keep It Local or any other nonprofit organization that helps the community that you're serving, we need help. Our senior center will one day go out of business if we don't get the city's support financially.
How much help and how much?
$60,000
Okay.
for this year.
And where does that go?
It goes to our meal program. Just
Total-
to keep our meal program go, it feeds people.
Totally to the meal program?
That's what I ask for the money for. It does not even go to the senior center aspect. It goes, most everything we make now goes to the meal program. We make our other money ourselves, and if we don't, then that part closes up.
Is that request in writing anywhere other than what you just said
Is
right
any-
now?
I'm sorry,
Is
what?
that request in writing somewhere?
Probably not now, because I've gotten tired of requesting money in the past. So,
Well, there was a time we quit giving money to
oh yeah,
anybody.
one time you gave us, there was one time 25, 30,000.
Yeah.
That was a beautiful time.
But since then we were also affected by the economy. Things are
Yes, we
starting,
were.
Things are starting to come back now,
And-
and we're going to be able to start looking.
And I repeat this story. I repeat it, and I know I've been told I'm wrong. So it's a he said, she said. Nobody can prove it. A few years back, we got a notice from the city. We were going to be awarded $5,000. And several other organizations were also. And we waited, and we waited. Never came. And I checked on it, and nobody knew anything at that time either. And then somebody just happened to drop the gun and say, oh, we over here at the food bank got it. They got the $5,000 that was targeted apparently for the senior center. I have held it in my craw all these years. The food bank is a good organization, but however that happened, the timing really sucked. And I could go into it in more detail. So it was long before that we had any money from the city. And
Yeah, it's been a while.
and we really need the help. So our senior population may die out, but while we have it, we need to treat
always
them
more.
with dignity.
There are always more seniors.
I will die out one day, and then you can all celebrate.
Oh,
Thank you very much. That's all I've got besides
thank
the
you, Cheryl.
paperwork.
Yep, thank you. Okay, discuss.
Mayor Cheryl, can I
Yes.
just say, hey Cheryl, can you? I'm just speaking over here. Sorry. Sorry.
I won't even tell you what I think. No.
Can you try and get 3 different quotes for any kind of HVAC or
Why
units when
should
you
I
do?
have to? This is a city building we're talking about.
Well, because that's
I don't
I
know what.
have to do your work.
it's pretty standard. Yeah, I understand that, Cheryl. I understand your frustrations.
I will.
Okay. We're going to discuss live feed camera system for website. Roger from Watchpoint Video.
So, Council, this is a continuation of a discussion we had a few months ago about installing video cameras to do a live feed system on our website. And I met with Roger individually, along with myself and the county, and he gave a great presentation to us about what he would do and where he would place the cameras to give the most viewpoints and how it would work. And the council asked for some more information, so I invited Roger to come back, and
Nice.
I'll let him kind of talk about what he's going to do. Or what we're proposing to do.
Sure.
Thank you, Matt. Roger Finger, Watchpoint Video, Barnes Road in Portland. Pleased to be here today at the invitation of Matt Brown.
Matt deserves credit for coming up with a very high concept. That's not a new concept. It's being done by other cities. But what we're talking about is putting cameras in strategic locations in your beautiful harbor area, downtown area, so that people can go to the website for the city of St. Helens and be able to see what's going on. And today is a perfect day. It's sunny out there. People are enjoying the beach. You've got watercraft out there. It's just wonderful. So you certainly deserve credit for having a very attractive downtown location. Why not share it with tourists, share it with locals, share it with the world? This is about the image that you project as the city of St. Helens. Now, having said that, let's talk about what it would actually take in order to do that. I came out about 6 or 8 weeks ago and walked around the area surveying to see what was of interest, where can we put cameras, and what would we expect to see. I came up with a couple of locations, but one really good one on the old courthouse building. It's the cupola, the bell tower up there, and of course there's permissions issues involved in gaining access to that area. There are technical problems to solve about getting wiring up there, and then there are website integration that has to happen along with that. So it's not a slam dunk. It's not necessarily an easy project, but good things are never easy. And the question is this something of value to the community? You have many valid requests for funding before you today, and I would hope that you'd consider this one. So let me just dig one level deeper, and then I'll take your questions. So what are the costs? We propose to put 3 cameras up. I have show and tell. Some of the folks over at the courthouse were wondering, how visible is this going to be? You're going to see it, but it's not going to be huge. It's not going to detract from the historic presence of that building. We still have to go up there and explore the wiring. I actually installed a video system for the courts about 7 years ago, so I have some familiarity. And yeah, it's exactly what you'd expect. It's in a very old building with difficult wiring, but we think we can do it with their assistance and permission and a little help from your networking experts. Beyond that, then now you have a camera, now you have an image, now you get to the internet, and that's where we need help from the people that do your website. I would provide them with an embedded code example, and it's up to them to put it on the website. Well, what would a citizen see when they went to that site? We've done this with Port of Ilwaco. I've seen it for other communities. And typically what they do is they take snapshots, and by the time you get to the website, snapshot's only 3 minutes old, maybe 5 minutes old, whatever you want it to be. So you're seeing near real-time images of the community. There is a step you can go further than that, and Ilwaco did that. You can show live video. And now this becomes really interesting because people who own boats in the harbor at the Port of Ilwaco use it to check on their boats. And the marina is one of the sites that we're going to cover. So a boat owner can go out after a storm and see if his boat's still floating. He can see if his family is still out there. She can see if the husband's still out there. I don't know if anybody wants that. But it's not only an image, a thing for the image of the city, but it's also a useful tool for the citizens who live here too. So at this point, I think I will wrap up my portion and call for questions. I've not been impressed by many of the strategic camera locations that I see over television. And quite frankly, it's because they leave out the icons of the city. In this case, I think we have a perfect example. If we're putting a camera in the bell tower of the courthouse and the bell tower is our icon. And is there any other places that could include the courthouse and the bell tower and accomplish what you have just suggested, that it encompasses the sense of community and the waterfront and that kind of thing? There is a new structure on top of the Muckle building, which is down on Strand Street. that might offer a good as location as well. So anyway, that's my point. I'm not quite certain that putting it in the courthouse tower is the appropriate place at this point.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll
What
give
was
my
the-
personal opinion if you'll give me a moment. Yes, the courthouse is certainly the iconic view of the downtown area. It's not where the people are. The people are out in the parks, and I think because of the motion and the activities and what goes on in those areas, they're more interesting. However, I'd be very happy to put a camera anywhere you like it to take a look at your courthouse. Sure.
I was just wondering where the third location was.
3 sides. Here's the bell tower. This side faces the park here. This side shows the downtown shopping area. This side shows the marina. And Matt has a video we made of those. Have you shared that with the council? No, I didn't. Okay. Can you find a way to do that? I think they'd really like to see it. We had another question over here.
No, that was it. I asked
I
it.
mean, I concur with Councilor Morton. It's if we're going to do this, I want to make sure it's worthy and worthwhile. And, you know, a view of the waterfront is indicative of any waterfront on the Columbia. The courthouse is what sets us apart. It's historic. It's featured in I don't even know how many movies at this point. When you Google St. Helens, it's the icon that comes up. It just seems a shame that that wouldn't be part of this thing. I think that the other angles are important too, but it's like if we're going to do this, I want it to look like St. Helens, not like Owako, not like Clatskanie. I want it to, I mean, someone showed me a waterfront the other day and it's like, that's Washougal, but it's like, depending on from how far away, it could be anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the same, you're still looking at the same mountains in the background.
It's our identifier.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
How you doing over there, Matt?
I am as fast as I can searching through my email to find that video. I will mention that when we met with Roger, one of the discussions to talk about Doug's question on other places you could do, we did talk about putting initially cameras on this building right here. We talked about two cameras, one pointing toward the plaza area and then one pointing toward the beach. We kind of scrapped that idea mainly because the one over here, you're not going to see much because of the trees and the drop off from the park area down there.
How many cameras in your municipalities are on private property versus municipal property?
Okay. I would say the majority are on commercial leased buildings.
Okay.
There's quite a few that belong to, for example, Port of Portland or Port of Toledo or Port of Garibaldi.
A great suggestion, I think, there's a structure on top of the Muckle building that just has been built in the past couple of years. It might be good to go up and take a look, see what those folks have to say about giving you permission to take a look and look at the possible. And you know, and what I'm thinking about is kind of future kinds of things too, because as our city develops, it's developing down that waterfront area, down that riverfront area, which is right in front there.
Well, and that would give you full angle of
The
any
new park.
festival.
The new park.
It gets
Any
everything.
Festival, anything that's going on would be able to be visible from that location.
Yep.
Whereas how far out along the edge would your camera have to be to see stuff that's actually going on at Columbia View Park? Just because of the angle of the building.
We can definitely look at that. Roger, can you let them know, just FYI, so they know cost-wise what they're looking at for like, the cost of that specific camera and any kind of maintenance cost, just so they know kind of what scope we're looking at in doing this project.
Okay. My initial quote for 3 cameras to Matt was under $4,000. I would estimate there would be web services provided by someone else for around $1,500. If we add additional cameras, I think you can use a rule of thumb about $1,000 above for that. And those costs vary if we're not doing, that's a difficult one up there. If we're doing an easy one on top of a building and there's access and internet, it doesn't have to be that much.
Are your cameras often sponsored by any private enterprise by chance?
Interesting question. I have not encountered that in the past.
That's a good question, because you hear like at Channel 2 say the Wells Fargo cam and stuff
Right,
like that.
right.
One
That's a very good
marketing
question.
To have a little logo on the bottom of that image would be,
And I have the capability to overlay a logo. Another use that some of these cameras are put to, Coin TV takes shots from all over Oregon.
Right.
And if you talk to them, they would be extremely interested.
I mean, our
Using-
Christmas setup down here is really, really sought after, and a lot of images are taken of that. A lot of images are taken of our Halloween images, and that would be, I would think, very likable from a sponsorship standpoint.
So
July.
what kind of issue would we run into if we went 3 or more? Is there any issues when we get up to a certain amount of cameras? As
Not
cost
necessarily,
difference.
but the one thing we haven't discussed is whether we're recording or not at this point.
That's what I was wondering about, because that's what I was going to get around to, is downtown here at the docks, if we have both areas, if we had any issues with any of the boats, somebody maybe even falling in the river, you know, and nobody be able to detect it, or a crime happening down there, that we could go back and look at that video.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it on all those cameras, actually.
We could probably approach that with the Marine Board to see if there's any shared common interest to help share with the cost of doing something like that.
Even if it was just a 40-hour, I think some businesses only do like a 48-hour save.
Sure.
So they're not archiving these things for 10 years. It's something is reported usually within 24 hours.
What is our limit on the boats being parked down there, Sue? Isn't it 5 days?
Week.
5 days and can't return for 30. Yes.
No microphones are on down there.
You
We
guys,
can't hear you.
you guys aren't mic'd up.
Mic up?
There's no microphones on over there.
Oh, none at all. There we go.
I'm just trying to be sympathetic of.
So
staff
that's what
trying
I
to
would
do
like
that.
to. I would like to see maybe just maybe we could get rid of some staffing on having to go down there, and we can look it up on camera and having the boat's been there for 5 days. You got them on video.
That's exactly how many of the ports are using it. I would also like to
It might
mention-
save us money in labor position versus somebody going down and marking or writing down numbers. Because I know Paul does that right
Yeah,
now.
you have to write down the boat
Numbers.
registration number.
Yep.
I'm not sure you'd be able to see that from every
Not from
angle.
up there, that's-
Yeah, from the camera.
I did.
But it's possible. At least they could look to see if
That's
anything's.
this
still
is
there.
your a judge is gonna look at it. That's your boat. It never moved. That's the same boat. Picture. It's
It would
the same
improve
boat.
enforcement.
Yes.
I have a question about the location. Could these be put on a light pole? I'm thinking like one of the telephone poles out in front here or out there. But you said internet access, so how would you get that to a light pole? I don't know, but is that an option?
Yes, it is. All I need is power. There are some very good wireless solutions.
Perfect.
Gotten quite a number of pole cameras out
I mean,
there.
there's a big, huge telephone pole right in front of the city hall here that would.
And we've got
Get the
wireless
courthouse
around
and-
City Hall too.
So in the essence of time, the interest is still there.
Wait,
I take it from the
yes.
council. We'll do a little more research, bring back some more ideas to you, and then some cost estimates, and then kind of go from there.
Yep.
Do you have any more specific questions for Roger though? Just because, in case he's not here at the next meeting or.
Good presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
You do the Port of Ilwaco, is that right?
Yes.
So I'm on there right now.
Their camera's down at the moment. It'll be back up shortly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I-
Yeah. I did think of, just to finish up on Mayor Scholl's question.
Yeah.
I did think of some sponsorship situations.
Uh-huh.
We've gone to FEMA for port money, and we've gone to the local police jurisdictions for money. And they're more than happy to help.
Terry, do you have any money over there? That's our chief of police right there.
Okay. Anyway, thank you for your
All right, thanks. Okay, Habitat for Humanity request. Jennifer Anderson, H4H Executive Director.
Hi. I'm Jennifer Anderson, Executive Director of Columbia County Habitat for Humanity, and this is Bill Blank with me. He's our Community Outreach and Development Director. I am coming before you, and I've sent a letter ahead of this request to ask for another waiver of the system development fees. To date, we've built 5 homes in St. Helens, and we've purchased a lot on 12th Street. We rely on donations from businesses and your support to build these homes to keep the cost down for low-income families. We don't have a family selected yet. I'd say the majority of our applicants this year have been single mothers. And we are hoping to break ground real soon. The way the program works is we actually provide low-interest mortgages or zero-interest mortgages, and the mortgages are subsidized. The first mortgage is designed to allow them to not spend more than 30% of their gross income on housing expense, and then we subsidize the balance by giving them a forgivable second mortgage. Is there anything I've left out?
Other than the fact that in the past you've done this, and we appreciate it, and we really would like to see this continue on if you can, because the money that we are able to save in these charges are able to put back into building these homes and bringing back affordable housing to the community. And I know affordable housing is an important part of our community here, especially for those that would not otherwise be able to get that housing. In the past, actually, the request that we have had, this request is actually lower than the request that you've given us in the past, because it's based on the value of the home, where it's going to go. Yeah. And it's going to be on 12th Street property, as mentioned, and this property needs a lot of development, but it will add something to that area. It's not too far across from where the Red Apple is. Sorry.
IGA Market Fresh.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right. That's what we think.
It is a great location for a family.
I like your guys' program. I'm okay with it. Councilor Morton.
Habitat for Humanity is a great program. We've traditionally supported it. I would like to continue supporting it by granting the waiver.
I think it's a huge success, and I think we should continue going forward with your request. Thank you.
Councilor Locke.
I just have, where does this go in the future?
Keith, could you speak into the mic?
Where does this go into the future? Say, are these houses, do they just continue to roll over into families, or what happens 20, 30 years down the road to these houses?
The program requires, because we're subsidizing the mortgage, we are getting some mortgage payments back. I think in the letter, I told you the mortgage is $600 to $700 per month, but that includes the taxes and insurance. So we're getting back about maybe $350 per mortgage. We are right now starting a partnership with USDA, and we'd like them to take over the first mortgage, and we subsidize this. We will continue to subsidize the second mortgage. So when we finish this house, they will pay us for the first mortgage, and we'll be able to increase our capacity. And I'd like to, we are a county program, I'd like to also include other cities in this growth.
I believe what Keith may have been asking was, after this house has served this family, if it's resold, then what happens?
So I understand they're
Is that it,
actually
Keith?
they're buying the house.
They are buying
with a subsidy.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we're giving them the opportunity because we believe it fosters human dignity and self-sufficiency. We do education on training them on budgeting and financial planning and home ownership, home maintenance, those kinds of things.
Yep.
We want them to be more self-sufficient, and we're giving them an opportunity to improve their living condition.
I understand all that, but
Keith, what you're asking is okay. Is it going to another private sale or something after?
Yes, that it's
hard to say. I can say that several years the people that have been in those homes have remained in those homes, but they have every opportunity to move up with their mobility, with their improvement in life, to find another home or increase in size of family. So there's no guarantee that they would stay. We wouldn't have any control whether they stay always in the Habitat for Humanity family. On the other hand, if we have property that brings back property to us, or we get it back for whatever reason, that we try to put out for another family. We try to keep the same thing going so that it's going to be another Habitat for Humanity family that we'll select.
It does come at a penalty too if they sell it too fast after they acquire it.
That's true.
Yes.
And I
second-
think there's an accountability factor there for the city. Okay, we're taking care of our entire population. And in this case, we're taking care of one family or one person. And so there's a bit of accountability. I think where Keith was going, in a sense, is there an opportunity if they turn this house around? You don't know that it can happen, right? It's not contractual that they could conceivably
Well,
turn it
there's an
in,
incentive.
let's say 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So if they turn it in 5 years, is it possible that, and Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of think that maybe you were thinking, as well as I was thinking, is that could we get our SDCs back if they happen to turn it, if they happen to sell it?
It's possible if you want to make that arrangement. In the past, that has not been a condition.
I'm just thinking about it in terms of accountability and how we are approached with the community, and many times like, what are you doing? You know, and you know, somebody
will
could take
say-
really advantage
I
of
think
that.
I feel like we're investing in their program as well because
Exactly.
they are training people.
Oh,
to be
absolutely. I mean, it's a
accountable.
great program and everything, but like I say, you're right. I mean, well, say even 15 or 20 years down the road, they sell this house and it goes from $100,000 to $250,000, whatever. So now they've got this big chunk of money to go buy some other nice house or whatever they want.
Yeah.
I can tell you, we
And-
haven't
and
had.
we're out our SDC
Right.
charges, and the community's out them is what.
Right.
Really, yeah.
To date, we haven't had anybody resell their home. There's a huge incentive for them to stay in it because of the forgivable second mortgage. A certain percentage gets forgiven over the life of the loan. So their equity is, increasing at a tremendous rate if they stay in the home, which they're not getting if they sell it.
Well, exactly. That's why I say it would be 15 to 20 years down the road
Right.
where this
It
could
would
possibly happen.
definitely,
Yeah.
you're talking about later than
Yeah.
sooner.
But that's
We have
pretty
several-
stable, 20, 30 years. That's pretty stable.
Yes.
Most people move every 5 years.
And we do have our own
Yeah.
safeguards for the immediate. There's no flipping, as you can
Sure.
say,
Yeah.
without that penalty that you were
Right,
talking about.
right.
So that's a disincentive. So, saying, hey, I'm sorry, but you pretty much know what you're getting when you get into this program, and you're looking for the first home. And this, for a lot of people, they call it their forever home. So whatever you want to look at it as.
Give me one more overview of this question. My question is, how many different groups or institutions are you partnered with in this one structure? I know that if we go forward and say, yes, this is something we'd like to do, you're already partnered with the city.
Right.
Who else are you partnered with?
Betsy Johnson donates $5,000 per house.
We
have
just
the-
received a check.
Yes. We have the Oregon Association of Realtors gives us $5,000 once a year.
Typically.
Last time Grocery Outlet donated.
Grocery Outlet
Yes.
has helped out. Yeah, we have several different people that have also participated and supported us in the years past. and
Not to
will
mention the
continue to do
insurance
so.
company.
Well, there's
Yeah.
probably 30 or 40 businesses that donate in-kind material
Right.
and volunteer labor. We have a new company, Nate at Columbia County Tree Care, and he's donating his time to remove the tree from the
Nice.
lot.
Nice.
So we do enjoy a lot of support from the
Yeah.
community and businesses.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I'm going to go back on down the line. I'm good with that.
Absolutely.
Councilor Morton, Councilor Khan, Councilor Locke,
Yeah.
Councilor Carlson. Yeah.
I have
Okay.
one technical thing, and over the past years, we've heard these kinds of requests for both building permit fees and for SDC waivers, and waivers probably mean something to different people, the building department is often, the council will agree to, all or part of it, but they're also made whole. The fund is made, there's an accounting exercise that happens behind the scenes to make that, those funds whole, so,
That's you, Matt.
or not, so. Particularly with the notion of waiving SDCs, it's, and the building department, so. They're asked, the waiver is 100% waiver of SDCs, is what your
That's what
request.
we're trying.
Yep.
Okay.
And our other communities have done the same thing
Yeah.
with their communities. We're not, the only community in the sense that has done this. There are other cities that also support Habitat, so it's,
We appreciate what you guys are doing for
Wonderful.
each and every community, especially ours. So thank you. Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Hey, here we go. Building. Discuss increasing 0.5 building inspector position to 1 point full-time building inspector. Well, so I tabled this again, and I've talked to Matt a little bit, and later on the agenda we'll be increasing the administrative fee from 1.34 to 5%. That's on tonight's agenda. I don't want to discuss this too much if it gets heated, but I am willing to table it if we want to discuss it later tonight or even at the next council meeting, because we are running way behind schedule. So
Let's move that to next council meeting.
okay, let's do that. Okay, update on activity going on at Old Boise Mill Site.
I don't see a name beside.
I don't. Well,
Talk
that's
about that.
I think that was decided last meeting because so much had happened. And
Yep.
just to have that as a placeholder every single time, so then the whole council knows what's going on. Because I know that there's meetings with the mayor and there's meetings with Keith that maybe not all the council knows. And it's just to make sure we're all on the same page.
Sure, I don't personally meet with anybody. I just give
Yeah.
Keith a call every so often because
Yeah, stuff happens and maybe not all the council knows about it.
So
So maybe I'll go first as far as the general site cleanup issues. And,
yes,
we've been working with Mark Comfort on a time and material basis to manage this large amount of scrap metal and things that are piled in debris and cleaning up bushes and junk buildings and just a lot of activity. And it's made really good progress over the last couple of months. There's another overlay with that with the our new industrial tenant out there, and he's been helping fulfill some of our contractual needs as far as cleaning the site off and moving some of those materials off the site, and it seems to be going fairly well. I think
they've got things pretty well clean now, and then they moved everything that was moved into the one building is now transferred over to one of our existing buildings. We still have an issue with one of our buildings being full of Cascades material, so we're working on getting that emptied out so we can utilize that building, which will help a lot. Other than that, there's a couple things. I was going to talk about some of this under executive session, so I'll wait until then to talk about some of it. But the other is that the new tenants are in there. They've done they haven't done any reconstruction. They've done some demo, and they've done some cleanup on the big buildings and whatnot. So they're in the process of getting their permits and stuff for that. So that's what they're working on as far as the new. And then, like I say, there's one issue I want to talk about it in an executive session. So we'll wait till later for that.
I had a question. Something that I was asked for in the community about the development on the Boise White Paper site is, will that development have to go through site plan review? Will there be any oversight by the planning commission, or will it just happen? That's the question I've been asked in the community, and I'm just curious about
Through
how
the
that
permit
development.
process, I would imagine.
There's a permit
that-
process.
Well, it doesn't all go through the planning commission because it's on an industrial site. So because it's an industrial site, it kicks it right up to the council for some of the things. I don't know exactly what is and what isn't. You'd have to ask Jacob that.
We have our director here. Could we call him up for a
Jacob is
a
here.
comment?
I'm getting questions in the community about how that's moving forward and the oversight, and if it goes through Jacob, I think that's part of the answer.
Yeah, so it's a new use on the property, new principal use, technical terms. But it is a permitted use in this zoning district, being heavy industrial. And so it would only go to the planning commission if we elected to give it to them. But normally it's an administrative review. But
So all of that, it goes through the regular process with you.
yes,
Okay.
yep.
And then that administrative review, you will report on your findings on that in your report, correct? So we know what your findings are. We know what you're doing.
I can specifically put it there because it is city-owned property, and as they start to build buildings, we're probably going to need some input from the city council as a property owner, which is a little different than
Right.
the normal process, because usually it's just, well, yeah, we've done this, we worked with the property owner. So there's kind of a balances of us being a regulatory agency, but as well as, well, here's what's going on.
Yeah.
And also understanding that what works best for the operation. So we have to listen to those people as well as and find that middle ground, right, with the engineering and the development of this process. It's all
Yeah.
new to everybody.
That's always a dance we do.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Thanks, Jacob.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great. I got my mouth full.
I have to say this next. So.
Next. Okay, discuss amending city codes to include parks on proposal subdivision. So I brought this up,
Great idea.
and I was looking at these big developments that we have, and the west side is lacking of parks. And I was wondering what it would take to put in there some type of code on a certain subdivision size that they're required to put in either a pocket park or something like that. And what does that require?
Green space.
Mm-hmm.
That would require an amendment to our subdivision ordinance. So
Okay.
we have to change our development code. And that's what they call a PAPA process, post-amendment plan adoption, something like that. It's just a technicality. But so we have to go through the full gamut of figuring out how we want the language to be drafted, send it to the state, have a public hearing with the planning commission, city council. So it's a bit of a process, similar to what we did for the veneer property.
Mm-hmm.
Same process, because it's the development code.
Matt, you might weigh in on this just a bit, because this thought crossed my mind during our last hearing, or hearing several times ago, when we were listening to the appeal on the subdivision.
Mm-hmm.
My thought process as we all know, we got out of there close to, it seems like around 11 o'clock or 11:30 or something at night, and whatever. It was
11:05. I remember.
long evening. And so to open up another can of worms of trying to find some green space as a condition in that subdivision, we would have had to start another hearing, I would imagine, because there just wasn't time to do that. So the thought crossed my mind, and I thought possibly if a counselor or somebody who represents the city would approach the developers and see if they would contribute a lot for a park, could that be considered a donation? And with their, say there's 60 good sizable lots or whatever, and they say, okay, we're going to contribute this one to the city. Could that be considered a donation? And two, for planning, does that throw big wrench into the planning portion of if we're going to ask the people who are promoting this subdivision that they could possibly entertain the idea of donating a portion of the land to the city. What kind of dilemma, before anyone goes forward to do that, what kind of dilemmas does that encroach on?
Well, it kind of depends. The simplest solution, based on, we have this preliminary plat, it shows the streets, all the lots, would be to take one of the lots and to, instead of designating it as a lot, you would designate it as an open space tract. And that's pretty simple. When it gets more complicated is if you want more than one lot or two lots and you start rearranging lines, then there's this potential that it backs us up to the hearing processes.
Yeah.
And that depends on how much it's going to be impacted. But I know, speaking to developer many times, he has a certain number of lots in his mind, and I think my suspicion will be stubborn about reducing that number.
Yeah.
Could be.
But if there's an incentive, as you're questioning Matt, maybe that would help.
That would be a huge incentive. That would be a huge incentive for a developer to donate as a write-off for a project that size.
So,
The other part of that is I'm just vaguely remembering, don't our old master plans, don't they call for a West Side Park?
It has been a while since I reviewed the parks plan, and you're there.
Right in front of you.
Do you remember, Jenny?
Jenny.
Can you come up and speak in the mic?
Yep.
So our comprehensive plan policy for open space, I think that's the category it's in, calls for a half-mile radius. So every lot should have a half-mile distance.
The comprehensive plan says that the city acquires sites for parks per the comp plan, and that those sites be within a half mile of residential areas.
So the master plan took that half-mile radius, applied it to all residential zones, and came up with areas where it was lacking. And a big area was the area surrounding the old hospital property off Millard Road. And so part of the solution to reducing the amount of lots that are not meeting that half mile was to recommend that that become a park, or that a portion of it become a park. But it's only following that half-mile radius rule. That's kind of why. Questions?
So it sounds like it'll be a little bit of a process to do this.
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys are up to your ears right now, but we got the ball rolling. Do we get slowed down in the wintertime? Is something that we could table for a few months and bring it back up?
Yeah. So we already have some things that we're going to be looking at as far as code amendments. Some of the things Community Action has talked to you about, like auxiliary dwelling units, cottage clusters.
Yep.
There's been some legislative changes at the state level that we have to, make
Work
some
through.
tweaks to our code. We met with our certified local government person at the state, and they recommended some tweaks. And so we already have some, and so it would make sense that we just fold this into that whole process. And typically, it's a fall and winter exercise when we do it, because we're in a good economy, and things are plowing ahead well. But I do have some questions. So, the first thing, the goal of the council would be to have open or recreational space for developments that may be a little separated from public spaces. Would that be that's kind of the general concern of the council?
that there be a area for kids to go hang out if they want to go gather and play. That they're out, not in a safe spot, playing either basketball or foursquare or tetherball.
As lots get smaller and people are on top of each other and the road right-of-ways are narrower in some of these developments, what we're hearing back from the community is people are walking to the closest park, which is putting them on collector streets. But if they had a park that they didn't have to go on that collector street or a green space, then it wouldn't be you have to put sidewalks and crosswalks on every single collector street in our town, clear out to the hospital property. There'd be a park in their neighborhood, so those kids, those strollers, those bikes are not on Vernonia.
I don't know if this draws up a whole other technical thing for you, but I like Councilor Morton's idea of having them either donate a lot or donate the estimated cost for a future park in the targeted area within the mile, if there's available land in that certain radius.
Well, I think that's what your SDCs do, because we
Okay.
have this plan of parks, and as you heard in a recent presentation.
But over a super certain development size is going to be the hugest impact, and that developer is bringing that impact by creating that development. That's where I guess I'm going with. Maybe they even could donate, but I'm okay with just keeping it simple and making like a open space in a subdivision
course.
too.
Yeah,
I like the
I've
idea
just
of
said
little
donate.
neighborhood parks.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I like the idea of having little neighborhood parks really accessible, even if they're just pocket parks. It's a little space in each neighborhood, like Jenny says, that you don't have the same barriers as you do to get to the larger parks.
Just create community.
And I'm familiar with this
subdivisions.
from having lived in other areas that this is done. The developers are required.
I brought up donation just from the fact that it's already been done.
It's
already been identified, it's been accepted as a plot development, and they're ready to go. Oh, what about, there's a potential of donating that one lot up there in the corner for a neighborhood park. Would you be interested in donating that? And if that's feasible for that donation to occur, and they can write that back off their capital gains. So that's where I was coming from. And then if that is feasible, then that could also open a door for future development. But I also think that we should encourage pocket parks no matter what. Neighborhood
Yeah,
parks.
I like the idea of the incentive to the developer, though.
Okay, so that's one of I have some questions just to kind of gauge the direction. So when we do start digging into this a little deeper, we have some things to chew on. So the first question is public versus private. Should these green spaces, parks, be publicly owned and subject to our maintenance, or should they be private? So the pros and
Go ahead.
So the pros and cons, public, then the citizens in the particular subdivision aren't paying for it, but it does become our maintenance obligation,
Yep.
and it spreads our liability as well. And in the 10 years that I've been here, I haven't heard Public Works or Parks ever say, yeah, I wish we had more land to maintain. So that's one of the issues.
Right.
If you make it private, then it subdivisions sometimes have homeowners associations, and
Right, that's what I
sometimes
was
they
thinking.
don't. And we still get some that don't. For example, Emerald Meadows, I don't think will have one, but if it's private, it forces the homeowners association, and so it can increase monthly costs to those residents because of the dues involved, and depending on how the rules play out, it could increase costs of the development itself. And so public versus private is one of the things we have to look at, and I don't know if you have any opinions on that at this time.
Well, certainly the private makes sense because people will come in here and complain about their parks, their pocket parks or whatever, and they already have been given one by the developer, and it sits there. And so what happens is that community has not taken it upon themselves to develop it. Case in point is on Cascade Avenue between Sykes Road and where Gable Road and Bachelor Flat Road intersect. There is a pocket park there. It's on the other side of North McNulty Creek. And so there's one lot there that was designated for a park or park issue. Nothing's happened. And how long's that development been there? 15 years, 12 years, something like that. So if it is private, they got to make certain that they have their development codes in place and a way to collect fees to make certain that that's so. It takes it away from the city, and I kind of like that, especially if it's a community park, because that community owns that.
Right, it gives them ownership.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's theirs.
Gives them the ability to utilize it privately too if they have a block party.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's exclusively our little pocket park, and that's what's happening. Bring back the block parties.
Jen, I do have an opinion. Our Parks Master Plan person, could I hear how you feel? I mean, having grown up somewhere else, the idea that parks belong to someone other than the community just feels funny to me, so I wanted to hear what Jen thought about it.
I think private makes a lot more sense in this case because the intent of a parks SDC is to create a public park based on the new impact that development is causing. So if you're going to charge an SDC for new development and then also require that they have a park that is going to be public, I feel like you're just stabbing the wound to the developer. So I think a private park makes sense. I don't know how you would limit other people using it.
I don't think that anything that I've ever seen, it doesn't.
Yeah.
They just don't.
So here would be the question for you guys to think about, because what would be the appropriate size to request a developer? You ain't gonna do it on a 3-lot parcel.
No, that's one of the things that we'll have to put our nose to the
Sure.
grindstone about is what size of development where it makes sense.
And
'Cause
maybe you could look at a few other cities for examples.
yeah, there's a lot of examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Transportation issues in the development, all kinds of things.
So that's something that is probably beyond the discussion here. But
Yep.
you know, there's size, there's dimension, there's access. There's a lot of things to make sure. You know, if we get a developer that, because sometimes they want to make a good site, and sometimes they just want to play the game. Unfortunately, we have to write the code to make sure it's going to work for those who want to play the game.
Mm-hmm.
So we can hopefully win the game. So another thing to consider is, would you see these neighborhood parks as part of all subdivisions, or should there be an exemption if they're close to an existing public park? Because our comp plan does have that half
that
mile
would be
rule
okay. That would be one of those areas where I would like to see if there was a big subdivision. Why should they be treated any differently? So why couldn't they do a donation of an estimated lot cost in lieu of donating a lot off their subdivision, because it falls under this criteria of this volume of size of subdivision, and it will go towards an improvement towards that park for sure. If there is a city big park there, I would like to see that.
So,
but only if it was within that half mile.
That's right.
Okay, so if it's close to a park, then a fee or donation in lieu of would be the option.
So then we get a public grant, and we can go put in a nice little culvert ditch over at Campbell Park. We can get rid of the tennis court, make parking, and make it a little bit bigger there.
Okay, that makes sense. That's why we ask these questions, that we get a head start. Okay, so that's something we can look at. So here's another important one, mandatory versus stick versus carrot. So stick means you have this regulation, you have to comply. Carrot means, well, here's a carrot, come on, you want it. So it's,
I love
So
that.
do you incentivize it or do you force it? So the incentive could be, all right, well, you have this certain density. Let's take Emerald Meadows Estates. So, you have your lot sizes and dimensions and all that stuff, and you get it to fit. And if you allow some open space in there, then the incentive may be some reductions to sizes or standards to fit. Then the developer isn't like, oh man, I'm losing a lot. I'll go bankrupt.
What do you recommend?
I don't know yet.
Something to investigate.
It's a little early to. I looked at some examples, but it was kind of a quick. Well, let's see what's out there. The problem is, even though the incentive is there, sometimes, well, I just don't want to deal with that, and then you put it in the books, and it's ineffective. And it depends on the amount of incentive, Oh, well, instead of 100 lots, you can have 1,000. Well, sure, I'll take that, So it's kind of how much do you weigh it, and that's where the complication kind of begins. So if you're kind of neutral on that, that's fine. We can kind of figure it out as we go. All right, neutral.
I always like your questions, Jacob.
So the subdivisions, size of development, got that. Some of this technical stuff we'll deal with.
Upper right.
I think that's probably good for now. The other stuff just gets complicated, and we can work on it as we go.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Jacob.
Yep, no problem. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Direct access franchise fees. John.
Did we skip one?
No, I don't think I skipped up a ways.
Skip number 9 there, but so.
No, I just said that. I just read number 9.
Okay.
It's you.
I have the older agenda. There's another item on there that was taken off. So. All right,
Got the
direct
old
access
agenda.
franchise fees. So what is a direct access franchise fee? And that is something that the city is not collecting at the moment. We have franchise fees and/or privilege taxes for all of our city utilities. If you think about utility, like Columbia River, the PUD, you have electric service. The electricity comes to your house. You get the bill. You pay the bill. That bill is paid, and we get a franchise fee on the gross amount of that bill. The service coming off the grid, the power coming off the grid, plus whatever conveyance piece that's built into their rate on their side that we never see. Larger industrial customers, business customers, can have the option to go what's called open source. And open source is where you lease the space that you have a franchise for. For instance, Northwest Natural provides pipelines all throughout the city, including some of our major industrial customers. And they have the option to go open source and direct procure gas or electricity or whatever they want and run it through the line or the pipe to that business. And this is something we've recognized for the last few years and really been perplexed on how to address it. And our perspective, our ordinance says that the end user pays a franchise on the whole amount. Right now we're getting a franchise from Northwest Natural on the lease of that pipe, but not the gas flowing through it to these customers. It's a significant, potentially a significant revenue loss, really, for the city. So there's been, we have some neighbors up the hill at Hillsborough that's been successful in adopting an ordinance with an and setting a resolution by rate that essentially makes that legally permissible to do. Also, Prideville with their Facebook and all the energy out there, the city has been successful in capturing that franchise. And I'm just looking for direction from the council to proceed with moving down that road towards bringing an ordinance to the council that would address being able to get those franchise fees.
So is that based on the volume of the commodity?
So if you back up to what is a franchise fee or a privilege tax, and that is giving that company the right to use the city's public right-of-ways to deliver services. And
Right, but that's wide open.
right, so they're using the pipe, but what's coming through the pipe is also from our perspective, it should be taxed. So,
Right. So you're talking about charging for volume.
Yes.
We already
Yeah,
do.
well,
We already do for everything. And
we do for everything now. Yes, we are. But when somebody goes to a broker and gets it, then we're not because it's
Okay.
taken off the.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take Comcast, for example. So I'm sorry. So Comcast, when I served the OJUA, the Oregon Joint Utilities Use Association, they lobbied heavily the Utilities Commission to cap their franchise. You can only go to a certain level. And of course, the pushback came from myself and Portland, small cities and big cities. We need those. And so it was, there's give and take, but there is that constant push for the utility companies who go through areas that are defined that they can use to cap those fees, and it's continual. It just never goes away. So I just want the council to know that it depends on the makeup a lot of times of the utilities board, what they're going to say and what they're going to do. But as much as the city can charge franchise fees, I think it's wise to do that, and I think it's wise to keep upping the price on those utility companies for their franchise. Comcast is like, I don't know what your bill is, but mine, I bundled mine, and mine's well over $200 a month, and I'm thinking, wow. That's quite a bit of money for an entire community of people that they're collecting from. I mean, they have got to be getting very, very wealthy just on that little cable. So anyway, whatever we can do for franchise fees, I'm all in favor of. I guess that's
This is about the lost revenue that we aren't getting anymore because it went from, say, PGE or the Columbia River PUD. We get them through those because we have an agreement with them. But when if a company goes to a broker and gets their electricity or whatever the case may be, we don't have an agreement with them for franchise fees. So we're losing out on those. So this gives us the authority to go after those franchise fees.
Good idea.
The rate is a little bit of a different discussion, and
yeah,
it just right. I think that's.
I'm good with that, John.
I'm great with it.
Yeah, it would pay for some HVAC units and some food bank improvements.
Not
What's that? Wouldn't have that over there.
and an officer or two. So.
Meals on Wheels.
Okay. Department reports. Terry.
You're almost right on time, too.
Almost.
It's been a while since I've been here. I think the last time I was here, we had 2 officers brand new at the police academy in Salem. Since I was here last, one of those officers was not successful at the academy, so we had to let him go. And we opened up a process It's taken us all summer long, but Monday, we interviewed a group of candidates and identified two really strong candidates. And this morning, I sat down with one of them and offered him a background packet. We'll be starting on that right away. So assuming that all goes according to plan, with background, medical, psychological, and all that, we could theoretically have him on board October 1st-ish. I think we're going to do well with him. Not much else is new. Many of you, some of you have asked, and I've been asked in the community and from folks like Nicole about where's the cannon. I have submitted all the paperwork to the ATF and received the paperwork signed by them that gives us permission to keep the cannon for official use only by the city, the police department. So I have that document. It's ours now.
So we can fire it, or
Not anymore, because we took it over to Rob Heller Enterprises, and he offered to his services. You know, he's a machine shop, to put it back the way it was. You know that when it was stolen, all the welds were ground off, and it was ready to fire again. So we had to have all that stuff welded back up, which means paint, right? I mean, that stuff has that industrial military-grade paint. It was never going to rust ever, but now there's a lot of exposed metal parts to it. So just yesterday, I bumped into Thad getting my lunch, and he told me that they were trying to get the right paint matched so that they could repaint it. So I'm hopeful that any day now we're going to have a shiny cannon back at McCormick Park, and that'll be finally something for our history books. You look like you're ready to say something.
With the plans and the development of that's coming along with the Veterans Plaza, there is a place designated for that howitzer to sit, and it's also going to sit on a pedestal. And so just as long as everyone knows that, and it's going to be secure. So that's part of the plan.
Yeah, that's I'm not sure where that part of it's at. That's maybe something you can talk about. I don't know, but I'm just thrilled that we've got it back. We've got it in repair, and we've got paperwork that says it's ours now, and we're all
that's great,
secure in terms of it being recovered and restored. Now it's, as you just pointed out, getting that plaza built and getting that thing put back in the park. So,
Harry, did you hear the compliment on Adam earlier?
Yes, I'll pass
Good.
it along, definitely.
Yeah.
I wish I could say I was surprised. No, I'm not. I'm not surprised to hear that sort of thing.
Yes.
I think we did hit a home run when we hired him. He's a great guy.
Yep.
He gets along well with people, and
We just want to make it. Yeah.
people appreciate his effort. And so, not surprised to hear that. But I will pass it on.
Okay. Sue.
Yeah, a couple things. I wanted to start out and thank the mayor for the Citizens Day in the park and all the efforts that you went. That seemed to go really well, and people were really enjoying themselves. And very nice that you got so many local companies and businesses and people to contribute to that. I think that really made it special.
Thank you.
So, good thing to build on and make it better. The main thing I wanted to just talk to the council a little bit about is that at the last council meeting, you awarded the contract for the 2017 paving project to TFT Construction from Scappoose, local paving company. They've done several projects for us, and they always do an excellent job. And we're getting ready to start paving. They are going to be starting work next week. We're doing a lot of gravel streets because over the last couple of years, mostly our own public works staff has been installing a lot of new storm drains. And these were the reasons why a lot of these gravel streets couldn't be paved before, because we didn't have storm drainage on those streets. So they've worked really hard and have been working on those. So now we're moving forward to paving several of those gravel streets, getting a bunch of more of those off of our inventory. We're also doing some overlays on a couple of streets that have just deteriorated to the point where we can't just crack seal them, and if we let them go any further, they're really going to fall apart. And that one of those streets that we are going to do this to is actually First Street down here. And we want to start at Columbia Boulevard and go down to Cowlitz Street. We're not, because someday when we do development on the Boise veneer property over here, we're going to have a little upgraded design, hopefully something special with sidewalks, with better aesthetics, with we don't know what all that's going to look like yet, what the design criteria is going to be yet. So when that happens, we will rebuild this whole roadway, including the sidewalks, lighting. We're hoping to put the power underground, the utilities underground, and things like that. But until we know that design criteria, we can't really complete that work. But this road is falling apart. And this last winter took a huge toll on it with the freezing temperatures and the snow plowing and everything else. And we just feel at this point in time we've got to stick some asphalt on there or we're going to lose the road completely.
So you're not going to grind it down?
We are going to grind the edges so it's a smooth transition, but we're not going to go all the way from the sidewalk on one side to the sidewalk on the other side.
I was just thinking about the water. When I had a store down here, there would be water that came under the door over the curb.
Yeah, we're
so high centered.
Yeah, well, it's there'll still be the curb face, and if you had water coming up over the curb, then that may have been a blocked catch basin or something.
From where to where?
We want to start at Columbia Boulevard and go all the way down to Cowlitz.
Does that mean that this falls under the street tree ordinance?
Well, if we have an opportunity to put out some planters, we can do that in some areas that might be appropriate. And so we will definitely be looking at that. We do have some planters available.
And how does that conflict or dovetail, either way, with the urban renewal proposals that lie in the future, in a very short future, hopefully?
Well, again, we're hoping that this doesn't conflict at all. That's why we don't want to move forward with a lot of other sidewalk improvements and crosswalk improvements and things like that. This is technically just a Band-Aid. It is just to get us through for a few years until we see some higher standards of development down here, so we know what type of light fixtures do we want to put up? Do we want to put up hanging flower baskets? Do we want to put trees in the ground, which would be a higher criteria for us to do, but would be very difficult to do at this point in time. Right. So all of those things we want to do when there's the correct criteria to that, the design standards that we need to do that. But if we move forward with just a standard, boring, here's our lovely gray brush sidewalk, that's not probably going to blend into hopefully what we see in the veneer property development.
Could we maybe look at different planters?
That has already been the selected standard. We already have a stockpile of them.
They are so ugly.
I don't think that they are ugly myself, but that is what we have available, and that is, of course, what matches the rest of the planters that we have out here. So I don't think of.
But that'll change down here too.
Yes, but hopefully we'll have more in the ground at that point in time when we have appropriate tree wells and that type of thing. So I wanted to let you know that is going to be happening. They will probably be doing that paving a week from Monday. So that would be
on First
Street.
Good.
August 28th is the date that they have in mind at this point in time. There will be notifications to all the businesses, courthouse, etc.
That doesn't conflict with the 13 nights, does it?
It should not. It should all be on a Monday.
Awesome.
And they're aware of the 13 nights going on.
Yeah,
they also make
Yep.
sure that there isn't any other large activities going on at the courthouse or anything like that on that particular day. The other thing that they're going to be doing is starting very, very early in the morning so they can get the work done as early as possible in the day to be able to get the streets open again in the afternoon time.
Where will First Street traffic be diverted?
Well, if they just do part of the street at a time, then they can have flaggers running traffic one way or the other way. And also, since we're not going all the way over to the curb face, eliminating parking during those times along First Street only, and they can use the parking lanes to get cars to be able to get back and forth on First Street. So they had a lot of great ideas on keeping traffic and businesses open and people, patrons and every customers down here in the downtown area, because we don't want to impact that. And again, that's another reason why they selected Monday, because there are several businesses that are closed on Mondays. So a little bit less impact. But I did want to get any comments if anybody had any concerns about that taking place.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
And you got
go
more?
ahead.
No, I was just gonna go ahead.
Okay. One last thing is that the Gable Road project, the county did put out their RFP or RFQ, I guess, for consulting services. They received 3 proposals yesterday, and we are meeting. I'm going to meet with the county road department folks tomorrow afternoon to review the RFQs. So very excited about that. They're ready to.
Is that jumping ahead of schedule, or is that still projected to be an 18?
Earliest projections would be late 2018 for constructions.
Right.
So that would be a really accelerated schedule, just because there's a lot of moving pieces on that one.
Okay.
But yeah, looking forward to that. And that's all.
All right. Thank you for.
Yeah. Thanks.
Matt.
I will try and be as fast as I can. The last couple meetings, there was a gentleman who came in talking about the water quality reports and the mailings that we do. As far as savings costs, I wanted to give you a quick update and kind of a consensus. I did some asking of questions. In a nutshell, we spend about $1,100 locally in Bemis to have them printed. And then we spend about 2 hours of staff time folding and labeling every one of those. And then about $2,100 to physically mail them out separately. I did contact our utility billing printer, Metro Presort in Portland, about what it would cost to have them do it instead, and have it just go out stuffed in with the utility bills that go out. The cost for them to do it additionally would be keeping the printing local at Bemis Printing and then physically taking the prints to Metro Presort, which John has elected to offer to drop off on his way to or from work once a year when we do that. The cost to actually add those into the regular mailings is about $455. So a significant savings from that $2,100. I did ask a quote from the gentleman that came, and his quote was with including Bemis, still doing the Bemis printing locally, his cost for his company was $1,002. So a significant increase from having Metro Presort do it. So I would just like to let you guys know, and if there was a general consensus to kind of change the process from previous years to have those water quality reports sent out through the utility bills every year.
It makes perfect sense. They're already going to our customers through the bill.
Correct.
Yep.
So, okay. The other quick thing I wanted to discuss, just wanted a general consensus. I'm still working with CAT on the utility assistance program that we discussed several months ago. They are working up a agreement similar to what they use with PUD and other agencies as well. To start the process off, though, we have to sign on as a vendor agreement. So I have an agreement here that's been reviewed and it doesn't have any issues from our attorneys. So I would just like either like a consensus to have either John or they said it was okay if John were saying it, but either John or the mayor to sign off. This basically just creates the city of St. Helens as a vendor, and then I will come back to you again with the actual agreement, and we can talk about if there's any questions about that.
Happy to move forward on that.
Okay, I hope you all enjoy some of the changes that we've made in this room. I think the group of Susan and Jenny and Kathy, John and I, have all kind of chipped in our own pieces, and so far it looks pretty good. There's still some work to be done, but it's definitely an improvement, I think. With that being said, though, there was a discussion at the last meeting about streaming on Comcast. I had initially approached the idea, or brought up the idea of doing Comcast again, because it was not written into the original agreement when we were going to do all of the upgrades here. At the time, the company that came in and did this thought it would just be about $1,000 to come in and kind of connect a few wires and add some more wiring and get the streaming service working. When he came in to kind of look at it and do a more firm quote, there is a streaming box back there from Comcast that has been running since the dawn of time, continuously, since it's been installed there. It runs continuous because it's constantly streaming programming to the channels. When we turned it off, it didn't come back on. So to replace...
You broke it. You guys broke it.
All we did was flip a switch. And when we flipped it the other way, it didn't come back on. Needless to say, the replacement of that box is around $14,000.
Whoa, you guys really broke it.
So we did not
the IT guy broke it.
We did not get a firm quote about that, but that is the estimate that he says based on other boxes that he has seen.
And Comcast won't bear any of the cost on that?
I have not asked. I would hope that...
Oh. Oh.
Yeah, my assumption would be that Comcast would say, well, we gave you the PEG funds. And
So that would be why the old timers who are asking me, I'm not seeing city council meetings on Channel 29 anymore.
Correct. Well, and we hadn't had it on for a couple months or so since we started doing all this. So is there a general consensus of do you want me to come back with a real quote of getting that installed?
Yes.
Just assuming right now that it's going to be about $14,000 just for the box, plus probably another $1,000 or so to get it all hooked up.
I don't necessarily want to pay $14,000, but I would like a definite.
Correct, and I will definitely reach out to Comcast and the PEG person that I have contact with to ask about whether they'd be willing to help supplement some of that to keep it going.
I know that we had decided the Comcast, but my concern is with the cameras that are here, we can't even stream it to our own website. There's nothing. I mean,
with the camera system we have and the studio recording software that we have, we will be streaming it to our website in full HD. One of the complications that we run into with Comcast is that the Comcast box that we had or so was not HD related. And so the HD quality from the cameras would have to be downgraded for then it to stream out. So it can get a little complicated, but it's not impossible to do.
I guess I would feel good while we figure out the 14,000 if there was some shorter time span to get us back live. Because like Susan said and Doug said, we're hearing it in the community. Where's the meetings? What's going on?
You mean get it back live onto Comcast?
Onto our website
the
or
reason
anything.
why there's a delay in getting it on the website is because of people's schedules and training. We have multiple people that we need to get trained, and we've got the trainer who doesn't work every day of the week, and so we are starting. Each of us who have to work all this has to go through 6 2-hour training sessions, and so they're spread out 2 hours 6 days. So we've got those scheduled for the last 2 weeks of August. So hopefully by September 4th, we'll be able to have the meetings on the website.
The combination of one meeting in July, one meeting in August, and then it being down makes it seem like we're doing a lot of business in secret.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the perception in the community.
Yep. I think the cost of being transparent is coming right into our laps at this point. We've got to be updated with technology, and that's all part of it. And so I see it as something that we've got to go forward with. We might as well go forward with it now, because putting technology off doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't. So.
Is there a note out there that tells people that due to technical difficulty, but the meetings are not available, but there's minutes available?
No, just have some goofy program they put in.
I mean, does people know that they can get the minutes if there's something on the agenda that they're concerned about and they want to know about it, that they can come get the minutes, or that they can still write in. Do people know that?
We can
So-
definitely make an effort to post something on our social media platforms and our
Is it-
website to inform the citizens of that. That's something we can definitely do.
Is
very
that
easily.
channel 29 exclusively ours, or because it comes on
Yes.
black?
Right now, it should
Yeah,
be black.
yeah.
It should.
That is exclusively our channel.
Yes.
And it could be HD. Will it go to
a lot of-
729?
We can push HD to it, but whether you have HD at your house or
Yeah.
how it's
729,
Yeah.
or what station are we going to
Yeah.
get?
correct.
Yeah, 720.
So we can push HD. I'm not sure how much of an upgrade that would be on the box that we
Then we
get.
could,
But
Well,
I'll
you're
definitely look
asking
into that.
questions.
Yeah. I'll add that to the list. So
and then we could do a little short film out here of Halloween Town 2018, 20 years later.
I will leave that in your court.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
All this talk about technology just reminded me of something that I don't think I've had a chance to talk to the council about. But since I last saw you, we rolled out our mobile app on our smartphones. So I'd encourage everybody
I got it.
go to your phone and go to the St. Helens Police Department on your iPhone or your Google Android store and download the app. All of our press releases are released through the app, and then they automatically get posted to our Facebook and Twitter. So if you've missed it, and I know that there's been some confusion from the media about press releases now, and anyway, they all go on our app. So they come out like instantly. As soon as I push the button, your phone will beep and you'll get that information.
Yeah, I'm getting notifications.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right. The other thing I noticed with today's conversation that we had about people coming to the city council for funding requests, I am working with John on a tentative kind of process for that was used in Forest Grove. So I'd kind of like to try and move that to St. Helens. So just so you know that we are kind of working on that, we just haven't brought it to you yet because it's nothing in concrete that we can really discuss.
I was really disappointed in a report, or the lack of report that we got today. It was just there was no report to it. And I'm trying to sort through the paperwork trying to find the report. And all it was a request and a kind of blaming the city for a lot of things that could have been taken care of if reports would have been filed in the past. But never
Well,
mind.
the maintenance is
I'm
necessary.
sideways.
Maintenance is necessary, and she has brought it to us before.
well, it is necessary. I mean, you cannot, I would beg to differ that it was 110 degrees in there, but I know
almost
I've seen
half.
this coolers outside, the air conditioning units,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that place is fairly new, and I'm not familiar with what went on before, but I would have to agree with you, Councilor Morton.
It wasn't a report.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if there is a report, then we can actually react to it. And if it isn't, if it's just going to be something that's happened in the past and wanting to do something without things being in writing, it's really hard to.
Because this is the second report I've sat in on, and yes, I would agree. Yep.
What do we got, Kathy?
We have a little side
Maybe we want a format for reports.
Yeah.
From different agencies.
So Matt, will that format look like, okay, on the agenda, requests for funding every quarter or something?
Well,
like?
it depends on how we frame it. I can give you the example of how Forest Grove did it, and it seemed to work very well for, it was a once-a-year process before budget time. That was around either February, March timeframe, where we would put out the documents and information for any kind of nonprofit or organization to request funds from the city. It would be a meeting outside of the council, at least in Forest Grove, meaning that they would be set up and review the applications. First, staff would review them to make sure they meet all the qualifications, and then they would come to council for review and disbursement. And in a nutshell, each council was given a certain amount of money that they could pledge to whatever projects they wanted to. And then the applicants were given 5 to 10 minutes to come in, talk about their presentation, and discuss what the funds would be used for and any kind of
Scappoose
matching
does
or
it this
anything
way.
like that.
We used to do
And it
this.
does- yeah, it doesn't sound that different than what we
Yeah,
used to do.
we used to
Yeah,
do it.
and it's, I
When
think
we had
actually
money.
Mike Sykes was the one who helped create that with Forest Grove, so it makes sense that Scappoose
I really
does it.
like that model.
So-
And, you know, because you can always say, well, make certain you show up to the next meeting, the next request meeting, which will be such and such if you're looking for funding.
Would
Correct.
that include the request for the waiver? Because that doesn't happen on an annual
No,
basis. That-
the request for waiver would be something that they would still come
Okay.
to hear for. Real quickly, I wanted to give you a quick update on the court department briefly, just for the month of July. Compared to previous years, we've definitely made some huge strides over in the court department in the amount of closing over 250 cases so far that have kind of just been sitting on our books. As far as a dollars and cents makes sense. Idea. Just want to give you an idea. Last year in July of 2016, the court brought in about $16,000 in revenue. And this July, we have brought in $22,000. In addition to that, the professional services line item, which is where we pay our city prosecutor and our city judge, from changing them to the hourly rates, even with increasing the judge to $85. I wanted to let you know that last year at the end of July, we had spent $9,600. At the end of July this year, we have spent $7,000. So we are $2,000 less plus about $6,000 more in revenue. So far in August, that trajectory looks to be increasing. So there's definitely some changes in how we process things and how we're contributing things versus violation versus misdemeanor, whether they do on probation or pay an initial fine and don't go on probation, those kind of choices that are made. I will tell you that at the end of September, October, I will have Clayton and the judge do a little presentation on some of the changes in process to give you a more quarterly update officially with more information. But I wanted to at least give you that.
Yeah, I like having a little update like that.
So we're losing less, but we're still losing. Right?
It depends on how that trajectory looks. Right now, we had a budget of, if you look at it as a department-wide, negative $165,000. If you continue this trend,
Then
it will be a lot less. But it's still on that trajectory to be a change.
Be a negative still.
Correct. So, just wanted to give you that little update. Next thing on my list is SDC admin fees. This is a change you will see as one of the resolutions this evening, where we changed the admin fee from the 1.34% to the more standardized 5% that is seen across other cities. In researching that topic, I have found that at least from 2011 to 2017, which is as far as back I can go on our financial system, the admin fee of that 1.34% was never taken from SDCs. So that 1.34% is still sitting in all of the STC accounts. Normally, a finance director would do quarterly or at least yearly a journal entry to transfer those admin costs to the general fund where they're designated. From 2011 to 2017, that total is about $24,129. So with your permission, I would like to go ahead and transfer those previous years.
God, that's a third of that position, another 0.5, isn't it?
To transfer those funds into the general fund. But I would also like to request that that $24,000 be transferred to facility maintenance. As you've seen here, we have some maintenance needs that are needed here, as well as the other building, as well as probably an HVAC unit for the senior center that we are obligated to pay for. So in planning ahead for the future, I would like to request that since this money was not budgeted for a specific use and was not known about, I would like to put it into a place where it can be used for facility maintenance, which we don't have a lot of funds for because you've been spending money on more important things like people and everything else.
How much did it acquire to, Matt?
$24,100.
And how long a process did it take?
That
to
was
get that?
2011 to 2017. So the end of last fiscal year.
So it's
into
just
this
been
year.
sitting there the whole time?
Yes.
Holy cow.
So, do I have a general consensus to, I guess the first part would be to move that money from SDCs to the general fund where it should be. But then I also have the second request of moving it from the general fund to the facility maintenance fund where it can be used for maintenance of some of the facilities.
So, but it would still be out of the planning and building department, right? Out of the SS.
No, the money is sitting in all the separate SDC funds for water, sewer, and storm.
Okay.
And parks. So all that money is sitting in those SDC funds. So that money would be transferred from those SDC funds to the general fund.
Yeah. I'm okay with, I would like to see some of it go towards maybe paying for part of a position, but I'm okay with, we need upgrades, we need cameras, we need maybe a $14,000, we need carpet. Yeah.
You need revenue, consistent revenue to pay for a position, though, where this is only just a little piece that isn't going to recur.
Yeah, I think your idea
Yeah, this is
right
one-time
on target.
revenue.
This is right on
which is
target
why I
to
asked for the transfer to
do
facility maintenance.
No, but he's talking about longevity too, of taking that and putting it into that, right?
Putting it into
But it won't
facility
grow.
maintenance so it can be used for some of the maintenance upgrades like HVAC.
It would,
carpet,
it will
walls,
still
all that kind of thing.
grow on a small scale. I mean,
Correct, and
Yeah.
and now on a regular basis, you will get that 5%, assuming you pass the resolution tonight, where I will do a resolution every year to transfer that into the general fund on a regular
which
basis.
if we were doing 5% would have jumped that to, shoot, probably 60, 70,000
Over
since 11.
6 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did do a quick calculation just out of, my morbid curiosity of what it would have been if it was 5%. If the fee were 5% back then, this amount would have been closer to $90,000 instead
more than I
of
thought.
25. Just to give you a ballpark estimate. My morbid curiosity. So
every 6 years you can spend.
1,000. Yep.
So I understand I'm not hearing any negatives, but a general consensus to move that to basically facility maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. On that note, I'm sorry, I know I'm taking up a lot of time. I have a few things on my list. In answer to your question earlier, Doug, I did hear back from the lawyers that if they park or land is donated to the city, then it could be used, but we would tell them you need to confirm it with your own tax attorney and your own attorneys to confirm that. If it's donated for private use, like an HOA wafering, it's technically not part of the city, so it's not seen as a donation. So yes, it is possible, but we would still be cautious and say you need to double check with your attorneys that you can do it. As far as the IRS is concerned, they still see it as a government, as a non-tax entity, non-for-profit kind of thing. So. I just have a couple more things on the list. In somewhat kind of future thinking, 3 or 5, 10, 20 years down the road, and I don't want this to become a huge discussion tonight because we have more important things and this can be pushed to a later discussion later on. But in the future planning of City Hall, Municipal Court, and the police department, I worked together with the staff members over in the utility billing and court department about how we could better use that building. And it kind of worked into a combination of services, so combining the court and utility billing department together, kind of more of a one-stop shop than 2 separate offices, and adding a few more offices to that building. So I've kind of worked up a tentative floor plan with input from the staff on that building. And I have like I said, a tentative plan, but I do not know how much it would cost to renovate that building if we were to go forward with this plan. I reached out to Acon and Al Peterson's business to provide a cost estimate. That cost estimate would require about $4,000 to $5,000 to see how much it would cost to redo that building. Now, this could kind of breed into a larger discussion of where do we see City Hall 10 years, 20 years down the road? Do you see it here? Do you see it somewhere else? Do you see it as a combination with the police department in a new building there? Go ahead, Doug.
Well, we certainly had discussion with 2 county commissioners, and this was their idea, to combine city resources and county resources all under one building. And so I don't know if that still is entertained by the county or not, but my feeling is, and Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they want to get out of their building and they want to move somewhere. And they would like to, and this was a couple of years ago to just recently, as up until the last election, they were anxiously pitching moving and combining with the county so that the enforcement, law enforcement would be in one area, the courts would be in one area, so everything would be kind of like in one place.
Mm-hmm.
So that discussion went on. I know it went on with Keith. It went on with myself individually. I don't know, and
But that was previous.
yeah, and I think
Yeah,
Susan as
that
well.
might be why it's previous commission.
So that's just FYI.
That's good to know, and that kind of breeds into this discussion of the other thing that I wanted to bring up was a revenue source that the city has is there. You guys have always had a separate investment as far as bonds and other trades of that. It's roughly about $3 million or so that you choose to invest. We went through that whole change of investment policy and everything right now. After we transitioned from the old policy to the new policy and all the new investments that we are now in, sitting there for quite a while in our U.S. bank account, which is who we use for kind of that intermediary funds transfer, we have about $216,000, which is revenue from those investments in the past to date. I would like to kind of preface that of if we used some of those funds as a facility planning for the future of City Hall, courts, police department, which you have done a study in the past, and we know the police department needs a new building. So I would like to propose possibly spending some of those funds and at least probably going out for like an RFP or RFQ for facility planning services or an architect or someone to kind of talk about some of the ideas of what it would look like if we did combine City Hall, court, and the police department at a different location. Or if
Do we it's have a location, wouldn't we? do
well,
that?
internally, yes, but
Estimate?
I mean, the thought out of the departments right now would be up in the business district, up at the north, that kind of big pit area that is not owned by the city, but it is a big pit in the middle of the URA that could help spur development. And there are some discussions of possible land. There's
I remember
also
talking about those, but I didn't know whether that had gone anywhere.
Well, it would certainly put the downtown area here has the municipalities, right? It has the courthouse, it has this, and it has obviously the river and the old business area. Holton feels, and I know the businesses feel that they're isolated. And to move part of the municipality up there would, I think, be a benefit for Holton. And I think the redevelopment down here would be a benefit for the downtown area. I think it would be a good balancing act to go forward with.
Well, the area is talking about is south of Holton, but it would complete an area that is kind of lacking business.
It's up in that. It's up in the upper area.
So I don't mean to breed a huge discussion, but I would like to kind of approach this idea with some of the department staff and talking with the chief and John and maybe some of you specifically as council members on your feelings, but to move forward as kind of a facility planning for the city so that we know where we can plan for in the future 5, 10, 20 years down the road, and if it's financially feasible, which I believe it may be.
I think it's a great idea if you don't spend money right now. But
I-
talk about it.
With Doug, I think we need, it's kind of a big chunk to be in just in the little department report with not enough time to talk about it.
Correct.
I think that personally, I don't feel good about spending any money right now, given what we lie ahead. we're putting money into fixing this building up, making it nice for the future, at least the short term, hopefully the long term. And I just don't feel good about investing money and leaving the building that we're pouring money into right now. We
Correct.
just got to keep all our eggs in one basket.
Yeah, that's kind of what spurred my discussion is we are spending a little money this year to fix up a few things that are in need.
Overdue.
But whether that discussion is, do you spend, 1.5 million to redo this entire building for the next 50 years or 20 years or whatever, or is that money better spent at another facility or a site? Those are the kind of questions and discussion that I was looking for at a later point.
You guys have the discussion and then get back to us.
Okay.
I think that'd be really cool. Yeah, I don't think it's energy lost at all. I think that brainstorming those kinds of things is important, but I don't agree with spending any money on it right now.
Although I did walk into the police department, it's so big, you walk in, you like this.
Yeah.
Well,
No, we need
We need it.
yeah.
if we talk about it now, it's still going to be 3, 4, or 5 years before anything happens. So.
Then you gotta knock on the changing room because you're not sure, it's because it's co-ed. You gotta make sure.
I do have one last thing to discuss, and then I will be done. Kathy's- I can wait till tonight if.
Yeah, do.
Okay.
We're getting itchy.
Yep.
Kathy?
I just wanted to comment on Citizens Day and commend you for all that you did for that. That it turned out way better than I thought it was going to, but you came through with all your sponsors and donors, and it just turned out really well. You and I and Lisa kind of talked about
Thank you guys.
making things
Yeah.
better for next year, and
gonna be
so I
annual.
have written down some notes to keep it in our mind.
Yep.
And if anybody ever has any suggestions, to just let me or Rick know, and we'll get it written down so we don't forget it for next year. But it turned out really well, and I only heard positive things. A couple of negativities about the line being long, but other than that, it was really, really good. So, good job.
So we're going to have prime rib next year?
I don't think so.
Can you get it donated?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too is the LOC conference is coming up at the end of September, and we need to designate annual voting delegates. So, and who is actually going? I know Sue, Doug.
I'm going
and
for the
Jenny.
day. I mean,
You're
I'm
going
not
for a
gonna,
day?
I'm not gonna stay in. Yeah.
So
I'm gonna
I'd be there
travel
the
back.
whole time.
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to figure out which one's the?
Sue I've done it all the years.
You can vote and I'll be the alternate.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll pass it off to you early on.
Only if you give me lots of notice.
Exactly.
That's all I had. I'm not like.
Yeah, you're not like Matt.
Yeah,
I just need to have more meetings so I don't have so much to talk about at one.
tough, yeah.
John, do you want to wait till executive, or you got stuff to talk about now?
I could be really quick. Just,
Okay.
Similarly, share the kudos for the Citizens Day in the park. I have to admit, on the way to work today, I pulled over and was going to pick up one of those City Fest signs because I thought it was Citizens Day, and pulled off.
Wasn't us.
I would appreciate that. It's like, oh, that's this weekend. All right.
Ah, but was it in the right of way?
It was definitely in the right of way. Yes, and along the highway, and they were all over the place. So I
Yep,
was going to
they
pick
are.
them up and throw them in on the first one I stopped at. Made me realize that it wasn't the right event. So but,
That's funny.
appreciate the recognition for 5 years of service. It's been great, and I think we've done a lot of good things, and it's a real pleasure to be here. Halloween is officially launched.
Nice.
A little bit. They were supposed to be by the end of the week. They launched last night, and our social media started exploding, and because we were going to have a bunch of, all the registry stuff online before it. Marnie went online and talked about her coming along with the full family of some of the characters that are still living, and so that's all good. I think we had from 10 o'clock last night to 10 this morning-ish. We had 10,000 hits. So
wow.
Visits to the website. So
wow.
It proves to be as sensational as always. We haven't really talked about the eclipse. Some cities are doing things about the eclipse in those hours, but I think probably okay.
You're going to have a lunch, aren't you?
Terry, are you
Yeah,
expecting
that's
any
right.
enhanced anything? So. Yep. Okay.
Just a few minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So did we decide that we were going to let City Hall shut down for a half hour for the eclipse or whatever, the 15? I thought we said we were. I thought we had mentioned that. And we okayed it, right?
Anyone getting married in the dark?
Shouldn't be any traffic problems here. They're all going to be over at the coast or in Madras.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be an issue if you put a sign, we'll be back in 15 minutes, and you're out in the park with your glasses on.
We can work around it. So, it's okay. That's it. No.
Okay. Councilors' reports. Councilor Locke.
A few things, like I say, most are executive session. Did want to talk about our bicycle commission is low in numbers, so Kathy talked about, she brought this to my attention, and I think we need to go out and aggressively look at some new members for bicycle commission, because it's kind of a pretty good chunk of our community out there, and I think there would be, if we just did some advertising, I think we could get the amount of people we need for it. So we're going to do that in the next
What are you,
couple months.
7 down?
Something like that. No, probably.
I think I counted 7.
I think only 5, maybe.
Only
Something like that.
5?
I think 5, yeah. So that's just that. As far as Terry talking about Officer Heartless, I give kudos to him also, but also give kudos to all of our new police. I've had a lot of good reports on this. Is probably one of the best groups that we've had for a long time, even though there's a bunch of rookies there. In a few years, we're going to have a great force on our hands. So anyway, just want to put that out there. The other thing is First Street. Sue bringing this up is we did actually a streetscape out here 15 years ago, I believe.
Yeah.
And
With
we
trees.
spent a lot of time on First Street and the plaza and
Oh, it's
whatnot.
beautiful design.
Actually, the engineering firm that donated all the time and energy to redo the plaza, they put it into a contest, and I believe won a award or something for the stuff. So we need to get those back out and look at them, because we spent a lot of time on that. And so anyway, just wanted to bring that up.
It had traffic calming.
So we already have drawings of that.
We do.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Pretty pictures anyway.
I guess that's all for now, right now, anyway. Yeah.
Councilor Carlson.
I had a couple of things. One is that came to mind the other day, and I'm not sure if I talked to Matt about it or who I talked about it, but I'll bring it up here. With all the work that Matt and city staff has been doing on this room, and then Keith bringing up about the bicycle commission, I wondered if after it's all done, maybe in the month of October, maybe we could have a government open house and invite the committees to come here and be open to the community. So have a little punch and cookies or whatever, and tell them what they're doing, and just be open to the public, to invite volunteers that want to participate. I hear all the time, I don't know how to volunteer, I don't know how to volunteer. And give all the committees a chance to, this is what we're working on. Because I think Arts Commission is either down or close to being, it needs some help, and we're always going to use more volunteers. And I think cleaning up and putting on our new face is kind of a good opportunity to have that prospect if people are interested in doing that. The only other thing I had is I just wanted to say publicly how lucky we are as a community to have Chief Terry Moss. I surfaced to him my daughter's at risk and that she could use more influence in her life, and he just go, I'll keep that in mind, and he sent along a American Legion opportunity, and Kaylee went, and it changed my daughter. And since that time, Kiwanis, can't remember his name, the Kiwanis guy.
Which one?
What's his name?
Bill
Eagle has said that they used to sponsor people to go there, that he was not aware that the camp was still happening, and he wants to contact him, wants to look into sponsoring more kids to go in the future. And I just think that this is just a tremendous opportunity for vocational and the future of our community and the future of our police department to get more kids involved in law enforcement and not being afraid of law enforcement. Chief Moss has offered Officer Coy to come to the youth council and just creating that partnership and really growing that relationship. I just think that we're really lucky to have him as a leader in that area. I'm sorry I missed Citizens Day. I've been looking forward to it for 2 months, but as
That's
not
all
everybody
right.
knew, I was taking care of family issues out of town. So the pictures look like everybody had a good time, and I guess I'll be prepared for the reenactment. That's all I got.
Okay, Councilor Morton.
First of all, I want to thank the city for being the hub of the Relay for Life. It was another, I think, a very effective event. This year it was cut short from a 24-hour period to a 12-hour period. Our leadership with the city and anyone who attended with the city team, City Slickers, it was really neat to see. I'm very proud of that, of the staff with Kathy and Lisa and Officer Joe and all the people who, staff members who step forward and make that go. So, yeah, that was very nice. I do have some Parks Commission's recommendations to pass by the council, and I'd like to look at this, and I told the Parks Commission that these would be action items, so I'd like to get a head nod, if nothing else, rather than a actual vote, but here's their recommendations. First, for the staff to research and make plans for, 1, the Boise property parking lot, to evaluate that for RV parking. And we all know what we're talking about on the Boise property parking lot.
You mean
the
over
area
behind
behind the Farah building that runs along Milton Creek. Okay, so that's the first one, is that are we in favor of recommending to the staff to look at that for plans, so preliminary plans, and evaluate all the options for that area. Are we okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that taking a step beyond then our discussion of it previously on the?
This Parks Commission is weighing in.
Okay.
And they're making that recommendation that we do that. That we ask the staff to do that.
Can I ask a follow-up question? I think it's awesome. That's first off. But second, I just wonder if, I don't know if it's too late a notice, if there's any way, like we did the camping down here at the waterfront for the 4th of July, if it's too short a notice for self-contained units to be able to use it for the month of October. I don't know if they could do it that fast.
Boise?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just
we
am
talked
thinking
about
the
it at the Parks Commission
influx
is that
of
we
people
could
that
do
are
a
coming
dry
in.
parking kind of thing. I mean, it won't be developed, certainly, but we could
But
do it.
self-contained units, just like what was out here.
Exactly.
Right. It's
yeah.
parking lot and flat already, so.
Right.
Okay,
I
so we
just bring
got a
more
head
people
nod
in
on
to
that,
stay.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. The second recommendation was to redefine the day use park on Lower Milton, to look at it and redefine it as a park, and that means putting it into a master plan, making it an addendum for the master parks plan, whatever. Okay, so there are some steps to go through. Do you recommend that? Have we all visited that area? And
Where is it?
I don't think you two have.
No.
I've been out that way with Keith, but it was getting dark that night, so we didn't get a chance to go actually on foot. We did the drive-by.
Okay.
So now that you're healed up,
I can walk now.
Yeah, yes. That's the only reason you were never asked, is because
Right.
you were, yep. Where is this again? The lower, below the contractor's parking lot, the fair parking, below it.
And it's an old park that Boise had, and they basically have
It
the
used to-
fireplaces and the fire pits and the.
It was
It'll
the
go nicely
McCormick
with the
Park.
RV park.
McCormick Park used to have the old house at it. It was never developed. It used to be McCormick Park, basically. It was that size of a park.
So are we putting that on hold until you tour that, or would you recommend going ahead?
I recommend going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna move forward with that. Okay, appreciate that.
I mean,
Then
the city crew is already down there mowing grass.
Yeah.
Last time I went looking for a Thad, that's where he was. So
I know one of our people on the Parks Commission is handicapped, and we drove him into the
Right.
to the area. Yeah.
So, but we
Sure,
understand
sure.
that it's gonna be, we're going forward with it, but we're not gonna have people down there right away, right?
No, we're just making.
Well, I can see John's
What was the
face.
recommendation, if I could please
I can
ask
see
again?
John's-
The recommendations for all of these was for staff to make plans and anticipate any options for those properties for development.
Okay.
For parks.
Okay, so, because I was concerned too about when we were talking about putting RVs in there next month,
Next month.
no, 6 weeks from now.
6 weeks from now.
We're talking about for if they were, if it's possible, like they did out here for for 4th of July.
Yeah.
For the short term for Halloween.
That has nothing to do with parks.
Has nothing to do with making it a park.
Yeah, no.
Right, but,
Okay.
yeah.
It's
Oh.
just a good idea.
I had concerns though about making it even 6 weeks from now or whatever, RVs in there, because it's still a industrial site and there's people on that site already that have expectations. That's all I'm saying.
It's our property.
We can talk about that later.
Yes.
It's a side issue, I think. Then the third part of their recommendations was to make trail connectivity from the area where the RV parking would be down to the proposed park and possibly to the waterfront area by way of the railroad track, the old railroad track and the trestle.
We're all for connectivity.
Okay? So are we all set, are we okay with those recommendations by the Parks Commission?
Yep.
Okay, and then along with that, then it's gonna be up to Jen and staff to kind of make some kind of addendum then to, as that moves forward, to the master plan of what we have in mind. And I think that could be, I think you could do that just with an addendum to the master plan of proposed park areas. And I'm not quite certain how that could work or how efficient that would be. Their second part of this was to, they took a vote on this and it passed unanimously to encourage the passage of the proposed SDCs and the proportions for the parks. And Matt did a presentation on that, a brief presentation, and they were very involved in, whoa, this looks really good. So take a vote, and if you want me to make a recommendation to the council on behalf of the Parks Commission, that's what I'm doing. So they are all very much in favor of the SDCs. It was a split vote on the soda tax that Matt presented. So half of them, they wanted to abstain and they weren't quite sure and that kind of thing, but it was just kind of split. And did I say that right? Correctly?
Yeah, I should just note that the recommendation was for a 1 cent
Okay.
soda tax as opposed to what I recommended in prior meetings at 2 cents.
Okay.
So that was the only change.
Yeah. So it was split. It was kind of it wasn't a moot point or anything, but they all had some kind of reaction to it, I think. Nob Hill, the good news is that Nob Hill Nature Park has a parking lot now off of 4th Street. And so that there isn't any kind of issues with citizens up there as they're parking on my property and, those kinds of things. So that's it for parks. I do want to make a comment about code enforcement. I've had several calls from the same people regarding the 2nd Street property that was in contention with Miss Peterson representing a person and a trailer being on the back side of that property. It's still there. Apparently, things have not moved forward. And so it's still there, and the recommendation that we gave to staff about an ordinance for that, or a temporary kind of thing, hasn't been in place. So they're still there, and it's getting it's getting more out of control. So nothing has happened. It's only got worse.
Yeah, we were supposed to have an ordinance drawn up for a hardship
Right.
of some sort for
Exactly.
taking care of.
The
She
limited-
showed up, and it was her mother.
Exactly.
Yes.
The other thing that happened by chance is the downtown merchants had a meeting and want to get involved with, apparently Monday, this last Monday, and want to get involved with Halloween Town, want to get involved with events and whatever. And I passed that on to John about them doing that. And I don't know if we had a person from the council there at that meeting, or not the council, representing the city at that meeting or our events, but they're trying to do things with, and here it is kind of going different directions, and so I just happened to be the person that they grabbed and said, hey, how do we work with the city here? And so they weren't working with the city, they just had their own meeting, and that was to do that thing about the bite or whatever, and they want to integrate that with whatever. So anyway, no, that was that caught me way off guard. I mean, I didn't know what to say other than I'll get it down here. Great news for Public Works and getting the gravel streets paved. That's perfect. I appreciate that. And there is one thing about your report that came up on the water issue, and that sent up a flag to me, is that I went out to talk to the water guys who run that plant, and I says, hey, is there any possibility that in our reports, when we do these reports, that we are actually testing for more than what the state and federal government ask us to test for? Could we do more? He said, they kind of looked at me and they say, we already do more. And I guess about 8 years ago or 6 years ago, they tested for isotopes or something like that in the water and whatever. And I think that is really good for our public to know that this city is doing more, and especially when it comes to water. I mean, water is one of the most important resources that we have. We rely on it so much every day. We all know that. So to do more might be something that you'll hear about from me as we go forward into our testing and with our quality of our water we drink. That's it.
Thanks, Doug. Councillor Khan.
Also, thank you for all of your work and staff work on City Days. I look forward to it being an annual thing. And one of the things that I appreciated about it wasn't the same people that always come to things. These were different faces, and that's great. It's a whole broader demographic. Very good. Arts and cultural, we're close to the installation of a salmon tree sculpture and planning the ribbon cutting. Library board, the committees are continuing to meet to facilitate the strategic planning implementation, and I'll be meeting with the Access Work Group tomorrow afternoon in Margaret's absence. And that's, I think, all I'm going to say. Make it short.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
You guys have mentioned several times today Halloween and Halloween Town, and
Yes.
it's reminded me that I wanted to just share with you that when I say we, all of us that met last year for planning emergency services, I'm talking about emergency management and fire and public works, and we all came together in this room a few weeks ago with John and Tina and talked about planning Halloween Town, and in the efforts, well, I know that last year I disappointed some folks in the business community with our traffic management plan. As we dusted off the plans from last year, it was the consensus of the group this year that we really can't change it. That there's no easy way to get folks to this parking lot from over there. And So I have been sharing that in the community as much as I can. I had the folks you're talking about, were having a separate planning meeting, and they inquired and asked me what the plan was for parking and traffic egress, and I let them know what that was. So I just wanted to share that with all of you collectively so that there's consistent messaging, that everybody understands how parking is going to work and what it'll look like. And I mean, it's just like last year, and that's as easy as I can put it.
Okay.
Do we have a way of campaigning somewhere out there, of putting up some signs?
Well, and that's
city?
the rest of the point I should be making, and that is that Tina is working with the business community to with vouchers and coupons and offers, special offers and discounts to get folks from downtown, uptown to use the merchants and the highway. So there is an effort underway to do that. Not my bailiwick, that's hers, but
Sure.
She is keenly aware of that and working hard at making sure that doesn't happen. The dissatisfaction happens again this year. That's
because I understand the congestion part of it, but it's like $1 million that is just, it seems like it's just right on the edge.
No, I know.
Right on the edge.
And she'll work hard this year, I know,
month.
to make that. That was part of our discussion,
Yeah.
and that's part of the campaign this year. But anyway,
I believe there's also going to be some kind of a shuttle.
shuttles, and there's
And I honestly believe that this thing could grow into $1 million month.
there's
No problem.
shuttles and promotional contests and games and giveaways and stuff. And I don't know if John wants to get into it now or not. That's for later, maybe. But my point is, it's well at hand and it's well underway. But people want to know about parking, and they want to know about how we're going to get downtown. And our plan moving forward is to just take last year's model and just
Do the
reuse it.
shuttles have a special lane? A lane that they can go in to get people there quickly, to encourage people to use the shuttles, so that they could be over in a bike lane, or they could be over in some kind of lane for that evening, so that they can get down and out. Is there any possibility of that by chance? Freeing up parking on one side of the street, so it's a.
Never talked about that.
Okay.
Even if there was, what I go to a lot of different events, and they usually have designated, some of the parking is eliminated, so the bus can get into the curb and pick people up. So the shuttle stops are more carefully marked. When we've had shuttles in St. Helens, I live here and can't find it to ride the shuttle.
Well, we're gonna
And
meet-
so if it's not
Terry?
clearly marked and clearly designated where people can get on and off it, it's not used.
We're going to meet again in 2 weeks, and same group, same table, same
Okay,
room,
so
and,
my question to you as mayor and the group is, why couldn't we do Halloween Town the next 2 exits?
I'm sorry, last part was next. to what?
Next two exits,
I don't
Gable
concur with that,
and
actually.
what's the problem of bringing them down all the way down through town in First Street
Well,
right
we-
into a gate,
Uh,
and also the back way?
that is always the discussion. And if you're from St. Helens or you're from Columbia County, I can easily get you from Columbia Boulevard to Plymouth Street without a lot of trouble. But if you're from North Carolina and just got off a plane and you're in a rental car and you're trying to find your way through town, the easiest way to do it is 30 and Gable, turn right, and drive straight to it. Old Portland Road, Plymouth Street, you're there.
Yes.
And that's the biggest reason. If this was
But the
a
next
local-
2 rights would be very, very easily, next 2 right exits, right, would be Gable and Columbia Boulevard.
well,
But then you're having to direct them from Columbia Boulevard down into the parking.
it's
So straight.
Yeah.
It's much more
Top
complex,
down.
right? It's just much more difficult, much more right turns, left turns, one-way streets. The 30 and Gable,
There would be, okay, I'm just, so if we took a right onto Columbia Boulevard, I don't have to turn anywhere at all to make it to that gate.
which way are you going?
Well, the right turn's an automatic.
Go in,
The right turn is an automatic right here on First Street.
but this gate isn't open, right?
No, they have to go up. They have
So one way down Columbia Boulevard, all the way to the river, which is right here on First Street. You automatically have to take a right. You can't go through Keith's house.
You can't
We
go
can't
in
get
at
in there.
First
Yeah,
Street.
but you don't want
I think
First
First
Street.
Street's
Well, why wouldn't you have
First
2
Street's closed.
openings?
I think First Street's closed.
because during the if I use the 14th as the big one, I'll call it the big one. this is all closed.
Yeah.
The only way in is through the gate off of Plymouth Street. So that's why I say right turns, left turns. You have to come down here, turn right, then turn left, then turn right, turn left, and now you're into the area. And it's just much more complicated. And like I said, if you're from Idaho, never been to St. Helens before, and I said, hey, go down here and turn left, then turn right, then turn left, then turn right.
Maybe we need to redirect that event and keep it in the plaza, but maybe it should be over here for a while. I don't know.
The plaza is where they film
No,
Halloween-town.
no, keep the plaza closed, but the street itself, we always close it down for 13 nights right there, right?
Yeah.
Oh, there's really
Yeah, I know.
people down here.
I know that.
That's why the street's closed.
But the whole month that sign sits out there and directs traffic away from. That's all I'm saying. I'm gonna shut up that. I'm doing my job as mayor, as an elected official, to look out for my citizens and my business owners in this community. And I highly, highly recommend that. They're going to be missing a lot of different.
And but to your point though, that's why.
And Scott,
Tina and.
if you guys aren't familiar, the mayor of Scappoose applauded and thanked you guys last year on Facebook for doing so. And I didn't like it, and I don't.
From that, we've learned, right?
Yes.
All of us, and what I'm trying to get at is steps are being taken to mitigate that and make sure the businesses that are affected.
Yes.
Skinny's comes to mind. He is actively involved in conversations with Tina to make sure that he stays happy, and everybody that comes through that gate knows all about Skinny's and how to get there. And there's others involved in that too. So it won't happen again.
Yeah, I mean, to the mayor's point, maybe not the next two exits, but maybe a listing could be listed as alternate route and just have them go Columbia to 800 to 18th. That's only 2 turns. And then they hit all that business district, they make the corner, and it keeps it from backing up onto Highway 30 so bad.
Then you got a guy that has a restaurant on 14th that was standing up in front of you last year that was mad because they didn't go by his place either. So
One of the things
You
that
can't hit
Shedco is
everybody.
doing, I believe it was Shedco, wasn't it Shedco or Keep It Local? One of them is doing a
win.
map that shows all the businesses on it so that people will be able to find them.
Right.
And maybe just a food ahead sign, food and gas ahead. They can turn back around and come back to where they seen that, it's supposed to be on this next right. This food and gas ahead.
I didn't mean to kick a hornet's nest.
You
I
did.
just wanted you to know
You sure
that
did.
we're working on it. Everybody,
You're
breathe.
like Matt.
Everybody breathe.
You're like Matt. I don't mean
I
to
was
bring
just going to
this
say,
up.
it wasn't me that
Okay, thank everybody for the help on the Citizens Day in the Park. I'd like to thank the businesses, IGA. I'm going to actually walk around, and I've got a letter of appreciation from us as a city that I'm going to hand out personally to them. And I want to thank the council for approving the funds to get it going. And my favorite picture on the whole website, on the city website, is the 2 firemen and the little kid. He's got the little hose going, and the fireman got a bigger smile than the kid. And this is awesome, because that's what it was about for me, was just trying to get people out and active and enjoying our big, beautiful park. So, yeah, it was a pleasure, and I look forward to any suggestions to improve it. Let's do it next year.
You dialed up some good weather.
I know. Just the smoke cleared and it got cooler. It was awesome. So I don't have any other thing than that. Let's go. Let's break into executive session because it's already a little after 4. So now we are going to go into executive session, ORS 192.6602E, real property transaction, and ORS 192.662H, consulting with counsel.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Okay, we are now going into an executive session. The media is allowed to stay but not report on what is discussed.